This is the Main Street application.
Jesse.
Yeah, you just pass them along. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Jesse, were you done with that?
Sure.
Good evening.
Good.
You got that slide.
Congrats. Hey, how's it going? Good. How are you? Good.
Jesse, can you hear me? Test.
No. I don't know. Yeah, he might be on Zoom. Is that him?
Oh, yeah.
What?
You just talking about Mike.
Hello, hello? Is it okay?
That's a 7. Hey, Sanjeev. Hello.
Hey, Sanjeev,
Hey,
what's up?
Sanjeev. Good evening. Welcome back.
In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and electronically forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall and remotely at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 6, 2021. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please all stand to salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Miss Biggins?
Here.
Miss Saul Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mr. Vinayak? Mayor Prupus?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good evening, Millburn Township. As you may have read on Friday, April 2nd, we are changing the format of the mayor's message. We launched the mayor's message in March of 2020 at the start of the COVID-19 crisis as a way to keep residents informed about how the pandemic was affecting the Millburn's neighborhoods, our larger Essex County community, and the state of New Jersey as a whole. With vaccinations on the rise and many of our day-to-day activities slowly beginning to return to something resembling normalcy, we have made the decision to lower the frequency of this communication. Our weekly mayor's message will now be released every other week. That said, this pandemic is not over. It is so important for us all to do our part, regardless of vaccination status, and to continue to wear masks, socially distance, and remain cautious and responsible when gathering with others. As there is so much going on in the township, we will also be increasing the frequency of our township newsletter, the Mill Wheel, from once a month to every other week. If you're receiving the mayor's message, you will automatically receive the Mill Wheel newsletter. The resident shopper parking permit is now available for purchase, and this is a great opportunity to make shopping easier in our business districts. And this township keeps all the money as opposed to when we use pay stations and apps and have to pay for those services. On March 26th, Mr. McDonald and I met with JCPL, and we are in the process of receiving an estimate to remove the old utility poles on Main Street that were slated to be removed in 2016. The side ordinance review subcommittee met yesterday, April 5th, and we're underway with that process. The Rahway River Mayor's Council is forming a smaller group to advocate the consensus plan in Trenton directly to legislators who represent the area. We'll be meeting tomorrow night, April 7th at 6:30. The next Environmental Commission meeting is on April 13th. Bike Week is April 17th through April 24th, and the next PSAB meeting is on April 28th at 7 p.m. Okay, Committeewoman Eglo, do you have any reports for tonight?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay, Committeewoman Miggins?
I do, thank you. Good evening. We had a meeting with the Zoning Board Ad Hoc Committee, and we are reviewing the code, and right now we are in section 4. And one of the outcomes was rather than having to wait for the whole zoning ordinance to be looked at, maybe breaking it down into pieces and changing one piece at a time rather than waiting for the whole thing, which could take too long. So that's very exciting. So right now we're in section 4. Also, I'm so excited. I'm thrilled. I can't even tell you. We will be having a Memorial Day parade this year on Saturday, May 29th at 10, barring, of course, any changes from the governor. So we're very excited about that. And it will start at 10 a.m. at Wells Fargo, head down Millburn Avenue, take the right onto Whittingham, and then meet in Taylor Park. So as you know, we did not get to have our Memorial Day parade last year, and that was very upsetting, but we get to do it this year. So if there's a group, we have some groups from 2 years ago, but if there's a group that would like to participate, please email let us know, LETUSKNOW at MILLBURNTWP.org. So that's really exciting. I feel like we're getting back to normal. We are also, as we all know, that this is the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So one of our retired police officers had gotten 2 pieces of steel from one of the buildings, one of the towers that fell. So we have those 2 pieces of steel, and we will be creating a memorial of that. And we'll be putting together a pamphlet. This is going to be totally a donation-based project. So we hope that if you see that, you will make a donation, because we really feel it's important. 9/11 Memorial. HPC met this week. They approved a couple applications. I think it's important that people know when they are purchasing homes in town, they should ask their real estate agent if this is indeed in a historic preservation district, whether it's the Short Hills Park District or there's one over in Wyoming. Not everybody is aware of it. So I think it's important that you ask your agent so that you do know. And the chairwoman of HPC will be speaking at tomorrow night's planning board meeting on the Woodland Road project. So just so you know that as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wasserman, would you like to report?
I do, but maybe, can I see if
Sure.
my colleague wants to go first?
Oh, no, I don't have any report.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right, well, there we go.
There you go.
Like, do you hear me now?
We're
Okay.
good.
Oh,
We're good.
We're
You're good.
All right,
Deputy
good, good.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to talk about trees. As everybody knows, we have two beautiful cherry trees that are sitting in front of Town Hall. So as I've been reporting over the last 2 or 3 committee meetings, I've been working with Committee Woman Miggins and HPC Chair Allison Canfield on a proposal to bring portable solar trees to Upper and Lower Millburn Avenue. I also want to thank Committee Woman Eglo for her feedback on this project. I had her on the phone for a bit the last couple of days. We are calling this program MAGIC, or Millburn Avenue Green Initiative for our community. A sampling of the 2 trees are in front of Town Hall, as I just mentioned. I invite everybody to take a good look as they will be out there. And the 2 trees are just starting to bloom, and it was wonderful to see that today. And I'm told that they will have beautiful light pink flowers, and they will be on more full display over the next week or 2. In the evening, the solar lights illuminate the base of the trees as well as the trees themselves. This green project would make a major impact on these 2 districts while not requiring any additional wiring or digging up of our sidewalks. Our plan would be to purchase 72 cherry tree units and distribute them in Upper and Lower Millburn Avenue. We have estimated that each unit would cost no more than $1,600 delivered, or potentially $115,200 total, with the township paying up to $100,000. I will be presenting this proposal to the Explore Millburn Board on Thursday to see if they would like to participate with purchasing 10 of these trees for up to $16,000. This project would involve an RFP or bidding. The project could take up to 4 months to be completed, so we're hoping to have them in place by the beginning of August. For the placement of the tree units on Upper Millburn Avenue, it would go from St. Rose of Lima Church, or Short Hills Avenue, to be more specific, up to Baltruzal, New Eyes for the Needy, both sides, but excluding the Springfield side, of course. On Lower Millburn Avenue, from Lackawanna up to Essex Street, and on the other side, up to Rawway, past Orange Theory. These cherry trees come with a 1-year warranty and have a potted lifespan of approximately 3 years. At that point, we would donate the trees to the town for replanting around our township. It would cost approximately $20,000 at that point to reorder and replant 72 new trees. Finally, we've been also working with our town forester, Tom Doty, as well as our administrator, to make sure this program is a complete success. So I wanted to let everybody know what we're doing, and I'm really hoping that this makes a major impact on our streets, and I hope we can do it for this summer.
Exciting. That's
Yeah,
great.
and we also, thanks to Jesse, we actually have some slides to show you. They're a little bit dark. I mean, maybe they're a little dark. We actually had to do this quickly. Let's see. Yeah. Jesse, hold on that one. So here you can kind of see how the trees are laid out. We're thinking that they would be between 30 to 40 feet in spacing, and they can either be straight or on a diagonal, but we may want to, see how they look installed. Jesse, you can go to the next one. Hold. Okay, go to the next one. So you have to kind of look carefully because the pictures are a little dark.
You can see that.
Yeah, that's a little better. You can see the tree on the right. Is that, that's all. So we will be putting these up on the website so people can see them, and we're very excited about moving forward with this. A lot of our streetscaping has been lacking in those areas, and I think it'll really help the businesses, and I really think our residents will love it. So that's my presentation on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McDonald, do you have a report for us tonight?
Yes, Mayor, I have several reports, and I'll save the one in which I need to use that computer for last. Just to piggyback on what the mayor said under her report with JCP&L and moving to the polls. We met with the township's area rep to discuss this project, and just by sort of a programming note, we do plan on having Carol Bianchi, who is our area rep, at the June 1st Township Committee meeting, just so that the committee and the public are aware of that. Sorry, got my mic. So this, the township has engaged in having some preliminary engineering work done by JCP&L to give a cost estimate and a plan for those pole removals. This will take a little bit of a time from them, and it is an initial cost of $5,000 to the town to get a cost estimate and the plan. At that point, it will be a decision point for the township committee once they've seen that plan and what that cost is. So this is just sort of a preliminary investigation into that effort. The township has been exploring the potential or the possibility of a community energy aggregation group. We had talked about this back in 2018, I believe, going into a group which consisted of several neighboring communities such as Maplewood, South Orange, Verona. However, it ended up that those communities were PSE&G customers, and we are JCP&L. It didn't necessarily work out in that instance, but the idea or concept of community energy aggregation may be one that the committee and the township wish to pursue. There is a group in Hunterdon County that is all JCP&L customers that would offer an opportunity to the municipality to enter into community energy aggregation. And just as a reminder, just to the committee and the public of how this would work, community energy aggregation is an opt-out program in which a third-party supplier provides the actual electricity, not the distribution, not the wiring, not the poles or anything like that, just the energy. And it offers the ability to purchase energy at a discounted rate. Hopefully, that's when it would be worthwhile to us to pursue it, but also to allow a green component to that energy as well. Some households in our township may already do this on their own. This would be a community-wide program. So we're currently investigating this to see if there's feasibility in it and if it makes sense. And I'll be reporting back to the committee with further information. Just by way of a little bit of a public service announcement to our community. The subject of pet waste disposal. This is section 5.8 under the township's municipal code. This has become a growing issue in the township of pet owners, dog walkers, or whomever may be caring for a dog, not disposing of pet waste properly. It is the responsibility of those individuals walking the dog to dispose of this properly. We should all strive to be responsible pet owners and understand what impact this has on our community, our neighbors, by leaving pet waste around. So I'd like to just put it out there now that the township will be looking to do targeted enforcement of this in problem areas. And I think it's also should be known that this particular offense is covered under the general penalty of the township, which is a fine up to $2,000. So I just want to be clear that we have noticed that this is a growing problem and that we need to address it. And hopefully that our residents and those individuals that may be responsible for walking the dogs can address it first. Lastly.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
Is it that they're just leaving it where their dogs are doing their business?
Correct.
It's just not a matter of, because when they pick it up, they're allowed to still tie it up and put it in garbage cans up throughout the town? Or they're
Well,
supposed to,
yeah, certainly you can put it in a garbage can. That's a very good solution. Also, you can take it home with you and place it in your own garbage can.
Correct.
I wouldn't suggest put in people's garbage cans along the way or anything like that. But, you know, once you've picked up the dog waste, take it home.
so they're just leaving it.
So lastly, I'm just going to go through a quick presentation of JCP&L's My Town, just so that our residents are aware of it. It's very quick. So I'm just going to switch places with Jesse quick. So we will very quickly test out my computer skills here, but really wanted to bring to the community's attention a feature from JCP&L called My Town. And this is with regard to power outages and seeing what's happening in our town. And so it's a very quick and easy thing for our residents to do and to find out what is happening in town when we may have a wind event or something else. And so I'm going to share the screen. So very, very simply, and I know this is not meant to insult anyone else's computer skills, but all you do is Google JCP&L. Okay. When JCP&L comes up, you will see, and of course, it's not here. The outages map. You can go to outages. I have to find another way around it because last time I just Googled it and My Town came up. My apologies. Search for My Town. And this is a feature that they have that allows different communities to search what is happening. So as you see under My Town, you can go to Essex, which will bring up Essex County. Millburn Township, we're currently 0 of the 8,099 customers in the township are out of power. That is a very good thing. You click on Millburn Township and it'll provide you with the area, with the information about the area, customers affected, percent affected, those customers served, the number of circuits that we have, basically what's causing the issue in the township. You can also make sure that when you are looking for what's happening in the state, you can go to view current outages. It'll bring up the state that you live in. So for us, New Jersey, and you can get a little bit more specific in terms of the map to view what is happening in the state of New Jersey. As you'll see, there are 3 outages in this northern part of JCP&L's territory. JCP&L also has territory down in the shore area, but more so, you can then click on outages by county, and this will bring up the similar information. You can click on Essex. If there were any outages, it would break it down by our community. And Livingston is the other town that has some JCP&L customers. So just wanted to share that with the community. We are in the beginning of April. Hurricane season is kind of around the corner in June. And we want to make sure that we're sharing resources. Just also while I'm here and doing this, we do have a Office of Emergency Management page on our website, which has a slew of resources for our residents to view, how to be ready for emergencies, what to do to prepare and all of that stuff. So we encourage everybody to go visit that in preparation for June 1st. That concludes my reports, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. Carney, do you have any reports for us tonight?
No, I turned it off.
So I don't have a report tonight.
Mr. Molman? May I have a motion to approve the January 19th, 2021 Township Committee minutes?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have two proclamations tonight. Committeewoman Aglo, would you like to begin?
Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require sheriff, police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of law enforcement firefighters and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical services is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Mountain Valley Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety dispatchers are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety dispatchers are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. And whereas the public safety dispatchers of the Mountain Valley Emergency Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Millburn, New Jersey, hereby proclaim the week of 11th through the 17th, 2021 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and joins in honoring the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Signed by the mayor. And this will be forwarded to our 911 center.
Right.
Terrific.
Great, thank
Very
you.
important. Thank you.
Committeewoman Higgins, would you like
Yes,
to?
I
read your
shall.
proclamation?
Whereas distracted driving is a serious, life-threatening practice that is preventable, and whereas distracted driving can result in injuries and deaths to all road users, motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists, and whereas distracted driving occurs when drivers divert their attention away from the task of driving to focus on another activity instead, and whereas in 2018 alone, distracted driving related crashes resulted in 2,841 deaths and 400,000 injuries on our nation's roads. And whereas in New Jersey, distracted driving was listed as a contributing circumstance in 50% of all motor vehicle crashes in 2018. And whereas the state of New Jersey will participate in the nationwide distracted driving 2021 crackdown from April 1st through 30th, 2021, in an effort to raise awareness and decrease driver distraction through a combination of enforcement and education. And whereas the national slogan for the campaign is "You drive, you text, you pay." And whereas a reduction in distracted driving in New Jersey will save lives on our roadways. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Millburn that the community declared their support for the distracted driving 2021 crackdown, both locally and nationally from April 1st through the 30th, 2021, and pledges to increase awareness of the dangers of distracted driving. Tara Prupus, Mayor. So I'm to understand we've received a grant. So we'll have police out there, folks, ticketing. So be mindful of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight is a business meeting. There is no place at this meeting for denigrating or discrediting fellow residents, volunteers, or township committee members. Everyone should comport themselves appropriately, whether they attend in person or remotely. Yelling out from the crowd or showing disrespect for your neighbors, the township committee members, or our professionals will not be tolerated. Public comments will be strictly limited to 3 minutes. I'm happy to meet with the public during my regular scheduled office hours on Thursdays from 9 to 11 by phone or Zoom. Meetings shall be set up by appointment and confirmed. To schedule an appointment, please contact me at tprupus@milburntwp.org. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda?
No.
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on a consent agenda resolution item?
May I? My name is Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. I'm talking about the bill list, Resolution 21-100, where since September of last year, we have had a paradigm shift in this community that we have access to it prior. My question, and through this, we've learned that before something's listed on the bill list, both the CFO and the BA approve the requisitions. I still have questions why we don't have this S&W knowing how much is being paid out to our employees between each period. Specifically, as to this bill list, I sent you a letter. I really just want to focus on one payment. It was check number 27729. It was dated March 12th, 2021, in the amount of $770,000, $770,068.75. It was payable to a joint meeting. I think the public is entitled to have a little more explanation. What is this joint meeting? How much, what does it do? How much do we pay annually to the joint meeting? Who represents Millburn on this joint meeting? And who is this joint meeting outside counsel? I think the public would really like the answer to that last question because it might affect something that happens tomorrow at the planning board. Because there is a connection. You're shaking your head,
That's our
Councilperson.
sewer system, if I may say, that's our sewer system, Mr. Feld.
Yeah.
That is our sewer system.
Or a sewer system, all right.
Yes.
But it's a joint sewer system with other municipalities.
It's about 10 to 12 municipal.
All right, the question is, I had to come here to find out, but it doesn't say, the public should know how much we're paying to the sewer system, that the sewer system is represented by a certain council. But now we know, so we're paying about $2.8 million or
About
almost,
$1.4 million a year. $1.4 million a year.
so we're paying half of it now. I'm just saying, just from the bill list, it doesn't say,
Probably,
it
yeah.
just says payment, because based on last meetings, I found out, like, again, 2 meetings ago, I asked what was a payment to Morris County. Ended up being our GIF, we paid a quarter. One of the problems I'm having, and other people are going to speak about tonight, when we found out was the payment to the GIF, we asked for a copy of the insurance policy, we can't get it. But I think there needs to be more information saying that. If it says joint county, just say it's the sewer, our sewer system, so people that knows it. Because remember, prior to September, we never had access to the bill list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Hello.
Good evening, Ms. Pasternak.
Hi. Yes, hi. Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I'd just like to concur with what Jeff Feld, previous commentator, just said. The transparency issue, I think, is a continuing one that we would like to highlight as members of the public. We're looking at what's being presented, and once again, it's incomplete. When you present financials on a bi-weekly basis every time or every other week of the month, it would be nice to know what the total payout of taxpayer dollars is, rather than a bills list that is rather incomplete when it's missing the salaries and benefits, which take up, I don't know, maybe Mr. Vignac can explain that, but they take up the lion's share of what is spent by our township. So it would be really helpful to see that. We've brought this up before. Can someone please comment? Will this be added or will it not? When will it be added? And when will we get to see a complete picture at every meeting as to what expenses this township has every other week when we have a township committee meeting? That's one question. The other is in terms of, explanations of expenses. It only behooves you to be able to share and be more transparent with the public as you're embarking on many different projects, and there's a lot of complexities to what is going on in the township. So having us in the dark about what these bills actually mean, how they're grouped together, what they connect to, it just leads to a feeling of mistrust and lack of understanding. And I'm sure, given Ms. Prupus's most recent, announcement of running again for reelection, and transparency being one of the themes in her comment to the press, I think that that should be something underlined. And I'd like to know from you, Ms. Prupus, whether that is a commitment that you do have.
Excuse me, Ms. Pasternak. This is Committeewoman Miggins. Is there something specifically that you have a question about for the bills list? We're
I
discussing the
I
bills.
asked the question. Yeah, I
We're
did
discuss-
ask the
And
question.
we're discussing the bills list. So I'm asking you, is there something specifically on the bills list that you have a question about?
I just gave it. Yes.
What is that specifically? Which bill on the bills list are you specifically?
I said
speaking?
that the bills list is incomplete and
No,
I
no,
would like to
that's not
see
my
it be
question.
complete.
I'm
I
sorry.
know it's not your question.
My question is,
You
what-
asked me what my question was, Ms. Miggins, and I'm giving you my answer, which is
Ms. Pasternak, we're discussing the consent agenda items, and we're asking specifically what on the bills list you have a question about. Is there one specific or 5 specific or 10 specific questions you have? Mr. Feld came up earlier, asked about the joint meeting, wanted to know about the payment. It was explained to him. So specifically, and we stopped your time, just so you know, so we're not using up your time. But what we'd like to know is specifically what bills you have questions about.
I would like to respond to you by saying that your line of questioning and repetitiveness about what you're doing is a demeaning comment.
You're entitled
I
to
think-
feel that way.
I think what you're doing is trying to deflect what I'm asking about.
Not at all.
And I don't appreciate that. I have made it clear what my question is. I would like to see a complete understanding of what is being spent each meeting. And that's my question. When will that happen? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pasternak. Do we have any other questions or comments to the consent agenda resolutions? Okay. Does anyone want to respond to any of the comments or questions that were raised during the consent agenda public comment period?
I have one response to Mr. Feld, that I am actually the joint representative for the committee. So, and I attend I haven't missed a meeting. So.
I have a quick comment, Mayor. I would like to say that Millburn is run so efficiently, and I believe when these comments are coming out, you're putting out to the public that nefarious things are going on that I take offense to personally. You don't have to respond to me. It's my turn to speak. That putting out misleading and hidden agenda comments, no, I'm going to finish, is inappropriate, and it's not the goodwill of our town. That's my comment.
Does any of the professionals or anybody?
I
Oh,
still
please.
have mine. Can I?
Of course.
Yeah, so I think what Mrs. Miggins mentioned earlier, I think she's absolutely right. When there is a open item at this moment, at this time, is specific to a bill list or a consent agenda items. If there is a comment, it's towards the end. They can talk about the comments towards the end. So I think that is fair thing. And yes, I would concur with Mrs. Eglo. I sit on finance committee and I have nothing else but seeing transparency over and over again. If you ask a question, if that doesn't get answered in quick seconds that you want, that doesn't mean we don't have an answer. We look at our financials every week. Right now, finance committee meet every week. So just posting and keep grilling the questions where we get all the services that we get from outside. The sewer is about 10 to 12 township in Essex County that does it together. That's why it's called joint. If you don't know, yes, I understand. We are trying to get more and more clear of our expenses, and it's a process. It cannot just happen in a day. But yes, I feel the same way. Our town is run probably in a very good way, at least from as far as where I stand.
And also since January, Mr. McDonald can tell you, I question those bills, that bills list all the time. Because I'm new, I don't know who some of these companies are or why we're paying certain amounts of money. I'd like to know, and to Mr. Feld's point, why does something show up once a year, twice a year, quarterly, monthly? I don't know. So I do question every single, don't I? Mr. McDonald.
That is true.
So, and I think it is important. And so, if there are questions about it, please ask us. We'll let you know.
And I just want to add one thing. What Committeeman Vinayak said is true. I mean, for the first time, I think in the history of our committee, with the finance committees meeting every week.
Mhm.
Every week. I mean, but I think in past, we've met quarterly, we've met, during the year, but every week, and we go over, every expense. I mean, we're very, very thorough. And if there's ever a question, everybody's invited to ask it, and there will always be a response.
Right, thank you. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-100 through Resolution 21-104, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Saul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
yes,
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 21-110. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to Resolution 21-110? Okay, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-110?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Saul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
yes.
Mayor Prupus.
And
Thank you.
tonight is the introduction of the Millburn Short Hills Business Organization 2021 budget introduction, and Deputy Mayor Wasserman, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. For tonight's presentation, I've asked Michael Parlavecchio and Stephen Weiner to do the budget presentation because they're on the board. Michael is the chair of Explore Millburn. Stephen is a treasurer. I do want to note that in only a few months, Explore Millburn has accomplished so much with monthly merchant and property owner newsletters, almost daily social media support for all of our merchants and amazing programming around the town. This organization is only getting started. I also want to offer my personal thanks to all the hardworking volunteers on the board who are meeting almost weekly to support our township. Nadej Nicole, Andrew Morgan, Stephen Weiner, Jemana Culligan, Tracy Katz-Levine, Michael Parlavecchio, and of course, our former mayor, Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg. They are working so hard, and I just want to attest to that before we go into it. And we can have Stephen and Michael. Jesse, have maybe I think Michael wants.
There he is. Good evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Michael, do you have a few things? or
Yeah,
would you
I
like
can
me to
start. Sure, I'll start. Good evening, Mayor Prupus and Township Committee members. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Wasserman, for the nice introduction and for mentioning all of our board members' names. I'm Michael Parlavecchio. I'm the chair of the Millburn Short Hills Business Organization, also known now as Explore Millburn Short Hills, and our Board of Trustees. Our appointed board is comprised of residents volunteering on behalf of the over 400 business owners and 200 plus property owners within the 5 business districts of Millburn Short Hills. The goal of this organization is to promote the district as the center of the community and hub of economic activity while creating a positive image that showcases our wonderful community. In the 6 or so months since we've started, we have been hard at work. Started with a Halloween event to attract families to the downtown, and most recently with this past weekend's music to welcome back the outdoor dining season. We also coordinated holiday window painting and are currently sponsoring the It's a Gem contest, where you guess the number of gems in the jar displayed at 27 participating merchants for a chance to win $25 at each location. And coming up on May 8th, we're getting ready for a Mother's Day event in Taylor Park. Tonight, we're here to present our budget, and believe me, we understand money doesn't grow on trees. We are getting started, and we understand the difficulties the past year has had on our business, on our residents, and all people. So we're allocating funds in our budget towards a COVID-19 grant program to try to help our businesses not only survive, but strive in this new year as we come out of the pandemic. Earlier this year, we partnered with MSH Flag to secure a $200,000 New Jersey EDA grant that allows us to pay local restaurants to provide meals for frontline and healthcare workers. We're currently coordinating with restaurants and organizations so we can get that money into businesses' hands. While this organization's volunteers have great ideas and seemingly boundless energy, we want to establish strong management to sustain our efforts. Our budget points toward foundation building and organizational necessities that will allow us to operate in a professional and streamlined manner. You'll hear from Stephen Weiner, who's our organization's treasurer, what this budget is intended to accomplish and why. You'll see plans to address design, promotion, and economic vitality to improve our business districts, not just for our Millburn residents, but to make it more attractive to visitors from the greater area. We do understand the need to keep the costs of our programming manageable, and we will continue to pursue other resources, such as grants and private funding, to help support the stated mission of this organization. I do want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to serve our community in this way. And we look forward to not only the next 6 months, but through the rest of the year, and to really bring this organization to something the township and all the merchants can be proud of. And with that, I will turn it over to Stephen, who's got I get to give the flowery part, he's got the important part with the numbers. So thank you again, Mayor Lucas, and to the members of the committee.
Michael, thank you. Yeah, you took all the good talking points, but good evening. I am Stephen Weiner. I'm also on the Board of Trustees. Very privileged to be volunteering and helping out launch and really lay the groundwork for a very successful bid SID going forward. So I believe everyone has a printout of the proposed budget and the various cost allocations. What I propose is just kind of walk through that and try to just embellish and give a little more background on each item. So overall, our budget for 2021 is $204,000. $204,000. We had about 11,800 or so left unspent from last year. So that's why you'll see about 220,800 in total revenue. I will point out the draft I see is there's a farmer's market entry both in revenue and expense. I believe the farmer's market is not going to be under our purview, so that will probably be removed in the final budget document. So that leaves about, I think that's 215 and 215,000 total. So then we have categories of expenses, and these are our proposed breakdowns, right? So staffing, you know, our bylaws require, and we really do need the services of an executive director consultant. That's by far, you can see the largest proposed expense, 79,200. We also have a proposed budget bucket of a marketing consultant, because the two of them are critical to this success of our organization, right? To promote business interests. We both need that very strong executive director leadership, as well as marketing, right? Social, it's all about getting the word out and supporting our business. The next bucket is marketing and social media. Again, another very important bucket. You'll see, for example, we have $5,000 in there for website design. A foundational expense. We've hired a company called New Frontier. That is the contract price, local firm to help develop and build out our new website. Right now, all you'll see, I think, when you go to the URL is just a landing page, but there's going to be a lot more there in the future. We also have a bucket here for physical advertising and marketing. So while online and social media is critically important, We also feel like we're going to be printing signs, like what Michael referenced, the music we had last Friday night. We printed some physical signs that were Explore Millburn. We're envisioning potential ads and like the item as we have other events throughout the year. Next bucket is general operating expenses. No surprises here. We have a legal reserve set up for $8,500. This is to provide advice on an ongoing basis to the board and the organization. Other things like accountants and auditors. We are, you know, a freestanding nonprofit organization, so we do have to have our books audited and make sure we maintain our own set and separate expense categories and books and records. So programming, another obviously important section of the budget. And here, as Michael referenced, we have $10,000 slated for the COVID grant program. That's a real estimate, right? We're hoping to raise funds as soon as we are officially designated as a nonprofit. But it is a very important program for us and our businesses in town. Then our larger bucket there of $29,000, that's for, all we could name at this point was like holiday and seasonal events, right? So we don't know everything. We have a subcommittee. Michael referenced some of our events we've held and what we have planned going forward. There's certainly going to be a lot more events. We just don't know yet. This is our first year. So I think perhaps next year we'll be able to get a little more granular as we learn what works and what doesn't work. We've had some very successful programs so far. The May 8th event has actually been retitled, I think, Fame. So it's a combination, it happens to be tied to Mother's Day, but it's also fitness, art, music, and entertainment. I just learned that today. And so there'll be a variety of events all day. And that's going to be a really exciting event. Let me point out one thing. It's not just downtown, right? So we have 5 separate districts that we're focused on. So the next bucket is streetscape visual improvements. And that's not just downtown, that's Upper Millburn, that's by the Short Hills train station. That's like every one of our disparate commercial centers. We're focused on how to improve the look and feel of those locations. If it's trees, benches, garbage cans, we're gonna strategically figure out how to improve each of those separate districts, which I think is something new that we haven't really focused on in the past. So that brings us to again, the $220,000 on this budget. But again, we're going to pull out the farmer's market piece in the final version. Is there any questions or comments?
I have a comment. If the farmer's market for $5,000 is not going to be part of the budget, I would recommend that be deleted from this resolution prior to introduction and adoption, because then what will go to public hearing is the budget that you would be introducing and approving tonight. So that public hearing will be scheduled for a later date. If, as a result of the public hearing, certain other things are changed, the statute discusses exactly what that is. Only then would there be a requirement for a second public hearing. So if you remove the farmer's market this evening prior to introduction and adoption, you go to public hearing on a budget of $215,839.43.
Do I have consensus from the committee to remove the farmer's market before we introduce it?
Yes.
I would recommend that you physically cross it off your resolution
Okay.
before you move the resolution.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 21-105?
Motion.
With
With-
the deletion of the farmer's
With
market
the
for
deletion of
$5,000.
the farmer's market crossed off.
There's a motion.
Is there a motion?
Motion with that deletion. With the deletion
there a
of the
second?
5,000.
Second.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Saul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus,
Yes.
And if I may just announce that the public hearing is on May 4th at 7 PM.
Thank you, Ms. Gotti. Resolution 21-106, authorize execution of settlement and municipal service agreement between the township and the enclave of Short Hills Condominium Associations, Inc. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 21-106?
Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for getting this to an end. Appreciate all your help with this.
Do our professionals have any comments or? Okay, may I have a motion to approve resolution 21-106?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Stahl Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2573-21, I'm going to refer to Deputy Mayor Wasserman for the introduction.
Okay, thank you. So I move, okay, thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution 21-09 be approved and that the township clerk be authorized to have the budget notice published on April 15th in accordance with the law and the item and the public
Excuse
hearing
me.
of the final passage.
Nope, Richard.
No,
hold on.
sorry,
Oh,
sorry,
That's
sorry,
fine.
Deputy Mayor.
Oh, did I
We're
miss-
actually on the ordinance 2573-21.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a little bit lost.
I think a little out of order in our packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Okay, ordinance to exceed.
Municipal budget.
Ordinance to exceed. This one?
Yep.
All right, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A 4-45.14, public hearing scheduled for May 4th, 2021.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins, Ms. Stahl Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
And I would just also like to announce this public hearing is scheduled for the May 4th meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Gotti. The 2021 budget introduction. So are there any members of the committee that would like to, are we gonna, You're up.
Yep, okay.
okay.
Um, As Jesse brings up the PowerPoint presentation, we are here to introduce the township's 2021 budget. Some further explanation of the ordinance that was just passed to exceed the cap will be included in this presentation for the benefit of the committee and the public. As the committee is aware of this cap exceedance and what that means, we just want to make sure that the public is also aware of that. So first and foremost, I'd like to start out with my gratitude to the Finance Subcommittee. We've met quite a few times over the last 3 or 4 months to get to a point where we are tonight and being able to introduce this budget and what I think is a great budget, especially in light of all that we've been through in the last year as a municipality through the public health crisis and COVID-19, and as we continue through the public health crisis, and sort of as we talked about earlier, getting back to some of that normalcy, I think that we all, desire so much. So first and foremost, just a little bit of the housekeeping. Tonight we have with us Jason Gabloff, who is the Township's Chief Financial Officer. He will be jumping in here. Yes, that one will not be doing the entire presentation. But I just wanted to start off the presentation with some housekeeping items. Tonight is the introduction of the budget. This is the moment in which we do a very high level view of the township's budget, answer questions from the township committee. It is then all the materials that we have, including this presentation, the budget, the user-friendly budget, are posted to the township's website tomorrow for the public's view and review. We have a website email address at finance@milburntwp.org in which questions can be asked. We'll be happy to answer those regarding the budgets and the budget documents. We have to have 28 days between this introduction and the public hearing, which will be on May 4th. At that time, in addition to the period of time in which the residents can ask questions, there will be a moment for the public to also participate in that hearing of the budget. Next slide, please. So some of the goals and objectives as we go through this year's 2021 budget. Maintain fiscal responsibility and sustainable financial management. This has been a very long-term goal of the township, and I will say that a lot of our success throughout this really tough time is as a result of that. And we're going to continue those efforts. And in doing so, we're going to continue to take a look at and examine shared service opportunities and areas for cost savings, uphold a strong fund balance and cash flow position, and evaluate revenue items and fees for potential increases in those items. As Committeewoman Miggins had reported on the zoning ordinance, we reviewed section 4, which includes fees that we establish with our land use boards. One of the things that's really important to municipalities and that can get lost is you have to review your fees on a consistent basis. For instance, that ordinance has not changed since 2016, in which the escrow fee is set at $750, while those professionals that are charged against that escrow fee continue to increase. We need to make sure that we're evaluating and adjusting those fees as well. Investing in long-term infrastructure improvements and maintenance of township assets. Continue to improve our long-term capital planning and data-driven infrastructure decisions. The township recently, last year, went through a process in which we did a survey of all the township streets. We had a company come in and evaluate the condition of all of our roads, curbing, so that we can make data-driven decisions on which roads to tackle, so to speak, and go for whether it's milling and paving will suffice or whether micro paving will be enough. But this allows us to make data-driven decisions and where to spend money wisely in those capital infrastructure improvements. Currently, the township's fund balance position after this 2021 budget and the allocation in this budget will be approximately 12%. And that points to, again, this maintaining fiscal responsibility and sustainable financial management. It is important that, from a cash flow perspective, that we maintain fund balance. We are the tax collector for the entire municipality, which includes the schools, the county, the library. And so we need to maintain that cash flow position to be able to not only make sure that we have we have money to pay out those entities because they get paid first. If there's any shortfall, it falls to the municipality. We want to continue to improve improvements of the customer service experience and service delivery methods. We're enhancing payment methods for various permits and fees with contactless QR code method. Currently, this is in progress, and the first thing that's going to roll out is our fire department permits. A lot of realtors in town and a lot of homeowners use this as they're closing on a house or buying a house or whatever. And also our commercial properties use this quite a bit. And this is a good area to start out with where we can add convenience to our residents and users and be able to offer the use of credit cards, but also the use of a QR code that gets you right to the payment process. Use key performance indicators to evaluate areas in need of improvement and recognize areas done well. This effort has been ongoing since the beginning of the year, and we are currently in our third month of measuring these items. They are located on the township's website under performance measurement. And so our residents can go there and view the 8 or 9 forward-facing KPIs that we have that will offer some insight into what's happening in the municipality. This will again help us make data-driven decisions. Improve communication and engagement with the community. We're going to continue to cross-train our employees for communication responsibilities to ensure consistency and explore public surveying for input on service experience and delivery. So the budget summary. The amount to be raised by taxation for the municipal government this year is $43,489,453. Some of the budget drivers this year, pension costs, revenue reduction, which we'll get into later in this presentation, decrease in valuations, and operational contract costs. Some people may not know that we actually contract to have fire hydrant service so that we can put out fires in the event that they happen. So we actually pay quite a bit, there's a contract with New Jersey American Water to pay for that hydrant service. We had a decrease of our overall operating expenses. As we went through the budget process, we were able to take out $465,501. We increased the use of our fund balance by $250,000. I'm telling you all this to kind of get to our big reveal. We also decreased capital spending this year and for 2021. So COVID challenges, and so I don't want to try to paint the picture that we haven't been challenged in this time. We went through quite a bit last year in that we introduced our budget on time, went through the process. A lot of municipalities waited. We took the opportunity to introduce our budget as it was, understanding that we didn't understand what the impact of COVID would be. And so this would be potentially a very big adjustment year. So we had some revenue reductions. So hotel use and occupancy tax, as you can imagine, was way down for 2020 and will continue to be impacted in 2021. Court fines and costs, again, impacted during the lockdown and during the months that not many people were out on the roads, or and recreation and pool is the same idea. Those revenues were down as well, as we sort of saw an adjustment in the way that our residents were applying their recreational needs, and that pool and things were down. However, tennis and golf were way up, which helped. The big thing in 2020 and going into 2021 that we've seen a COVID impact on is our parking utility. Our parking utility is set up as a self-liquidating entity that the users of that utility pay for those services. That includes the parking deck and the debt associated with that parking deck, includes improvements to the parking lots, pay stations, meters, things like that, that anything that surrounds the parking in this municipality, we use the utility to do that. And we use the fees paid by the users, whether it's commuter permits, all-day parking, shoppers, things like that, to offset the costs that are associated with that utility. This has seen a major impact as a result of COVID. Just to give you a sense, we've sold 6 commuter permits in the month of March for a total of 87 thus far in 2021. Yeah, and I can tell you that this is, we generally sell over 1,000 commuter permits in a year. So there is a major impact here. And some of those impacts are also due to a credit or a refund that we've provided to our residents, which we thought was the right thing to do in the event that no one was able to use it during the 3-month mandatory lockdown of the state of New Jersey in 2020. This is where I hand it over to Jason. It's his turn now. So, Jason.
So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be out in front of you all. I see most people on Zoom anymore. But as Alex said, I appreciate the time that Mr. Wasserman and Mr. Vinayak have given to meet with us weekly for the past 3 months. It's taken a lot of time and we've gotten through a budget and continuing to work on looking at all the different areas of where there's some savings and some different things that we can do to help our residents. So as Alex was speaking about the parking utility in and of itself, that had its own challenge. Our reduction of meter collections essentially resulted in about an $800,000 revenue loss, which is huge for a small, it's not that big of a utility. So with that, we had to look at how do we go through the 2021 budget, knowing that we have the credits and the refunds, and hopefully at some point later this year, we start to see more people getting back to work, which would be great for not just from the utility standpoint, but just to see people getting back to work and commuting and needing those services. So the parking deck has debt around, and that was what the utility was created for, was specifically around the construction of the parking deck. So part of this is looking at how we can restructure the debt within the utility to help bring the costs down. And I think we have somewhat of a plan on how we could do that and keep that on target. And then Alex mentioned the permit fees for 2021, the credits and refunds. For this year, that amounts to about $241,000 of revenue. So when you put those two items together, it's a little bit over $1 million of revenue loss that you're talking about in 2 years. So, we really had to sharpen our pencils when we were looking at the utility. So overall, the parking utility budget is $1,474,218. In order to try and balance off some of that revenue loss, we are using more fund balance out of the utility of about $234,000. And then the utility also has a capital fund. And not to go too far into the weeds, but essentially there's parking capital fund balance of about $450,000. So we're using that as a direct offset to the debt service to try and keep it on track with what the pay down is. So that's part of that restructuring that we're looking at. The outlook talked about the $241,000 of parking refunds from last year. Alex mentioned that we are way down so far this year on overall permits. We're usually around 12 to 1,300 permits sold a year. And I'm not sure, is it 87? That's the number? Yeah, I was hoping for 100 at this point, but we're way down. And meter collections, actually, since we've gotten things back and moving, the meter collections seem to be on target with previous years. But even that last year, because obviously the downtown wasn't open, businesses weren't open, so we weren't charging people for the meter. So that there was that impact too. Go ahead, Jesse. Okay, so let's move on to the general fund budget. So this year, working with the finance committee, the direction was we wanted a 0% tax increase, and that's where we are at. So there will be on the municipal side a 0% tax increase on the average municipal property. This is just a breakdown of our levy on the overall levy, which would include the school, county, library, and the municipal share. The municipal share makes up 23% of the overall bill. School is about 49%, and the county is 26%, and the library has the smallest share at 2%. And just kind of a sense on that. Go back one, Jesse. Sorry. Just kind of, he can't see the notes that I have. So just from a standpoint, so you kind of associate dollars with the percentage. The county makes up about $49 million of the overall taxes. The school's about $94 million. And then the local and the library make up the remaining $46 million. But just to kind of give you a sense of what those percentages actually mean. Okay, sorry about that. So this just gives you on the average right now, an average municipal property or average home, residence home, I should say, is $1.2 million. So this just gives you a sense of on the average home, how your tax bill actually will break down. For the overall average tax bill of $24,724.43. And that just kind of shows how the different buckets fall. Go ahead. So we then kind of go one step further and say, okay, what do you actually get per dollar? Try and put it a little bit more in perspective. So general government, which includes kind of a lot of things that you don't really think about, but the office staff, the building, those kinds of things, administration, the interlocal agreements all kind of fall into that 31%. And you can see public safety, which includes police and fire, is about 26 cents on the dollar. Municipal services, which is public works and recreation, functions about 21 cents on the dollar. And then our capital and debt program is about 6 cents. And statutory items such as pension and social security and workers' comp insurance, and those items make up about 16%, 16 cents on the dollar. So this is just kind of a look. Alex talked at the beginning about kind of the revenue loss. So this is the main categories of looking at the 2020 budget that we adopted to what was actually collected. That's the realized column and shows the differences. You can see the par 3 was way up. That was the one thing that residents were able to enjoy as things were shut down. The pool, so this was an interesting one because we did get the pool open, but it couldn't open to normal capacity. So that's why we have a revenue loss there. The same with recreation. It was very hard to run a lot of the recreation programs and camps that the town would have normally run under the same scope of services. Hotel use and occupancy fees probably is the biggest hit. And so it's interesting because the first 3 months we were on target with where we would normally have been. Then the shutdown hit, and then then the dollar started dropping off substantially to the point where we have not received, and the hotel has to report to the state on this on their sales tax form. But essentially we've collected 0 since June on the hotel use and occupancy fee. So hopefully that's able to start turning around later in the year. But that's probably the one item that is still the biggest concern of the revenue sources overall. And then fund balance, we anticipated 5.1 million and we used the whole 5.1 million. So for an overall revenue shortfall of about $511,000. You can jump in. So this is then taking the 2020 adopted budget into what we could budget and anticipate as revenue for the 2021 budget, because you can only anticipate up to what you collect. So we can't assume that we're going to collect more. The state did give some allowances, but even there are some areas that we're a little concerned that weren't going to recover. So we didn't want to take a chance of then creating an even bigger shortfall going forward. So we kind of held the line as to here's what we know and we think we can expect based on what actually happened. So you can see that overall between the 2 budget years, it's a $463,000 revenue loss, which goes back to Alex's point that we cut around $465,000 of appropriations.
Yeah. So just to jump in here real quick, on the revenue side, just to be clear, these are the differences and the totals on what we're showing here. This isn't the full revenue picture, but these are the major categories and where we saw the major changes in it. Just to note a little bit too, we got some assistance throughout the year in 2020 that has helped us sort of pivot into 2021. During the pandemic, or the height of the pandemic, the township was experiencing additional expenses as a result of the pandemic, extra cleaning, buying supplies, PPE, making sure that our first responders were outfitted. We had the opportunity to do that through a reserve in our storm trust. And those expenses then were reimbursed by the county through the CARES Act. And so we were reimbursed for those expenses in the amount of $474,267. The other thing that helped assist in the revenue picture was that we are constantly, when storms come up and when we spend money on storms, we're constantly going back after the money that we spent, whether it's overtime, emergency services, equipment that we've had to purchase, things like that. And Winter Storm Quinn, we had applied for FEMA funding back in 2019. We ended up receiving that money in 2020, which helped offset some of the revenue gap that we experienced. And we received $433,375 in 2020. So all of this helped as we kind of looked at the big picture of where things were going. And so kind of putting all of this stuff together is why we are in the position that we are as a municipality to be able to say the tax rate is staying flat. It's a 0% increase, and it's a zero tax increase on on all property owners.
You can go to the next slide, Jess. So this is just kind of another look at the appropriations, the spending side, just kind of breaking out into a little further detail and into the different buckets that we deal with. Broken out to the right is those other expenses that make up that rest of that general government category. Things like debt service, our capital program, the joint trunk or the joint sewer meeting, and reserve for uncollected taxes, which is a dollar amount that we have to have in the budget should you have tax collection shortfalls, because regardless of what we actually collect, the school and the county get 100% of their funds. So that's essentially the offset for that. You want to go? No. Oh, sorry. So just another kind of breakdown, essentially about 10% to the budget. And if you throw capital in there, it's maybe closer to 12, 13% is actually discretionary funding. When you get into some of the statutory things and some of the things like fire hydrant services and those contractual items, we don't get a lot of movement on some of those. Once you're into a contract and until those contracts are up, it's not discretionary. So that's just kind of a look at how much room there really is in the budget. Go ahead, Jesse.
All right, I know we're dragging on with the budget introduction here, but important information here for the community. So capital budget, we are allocating $1.4 million in 2021 budget. Keep in mind that capital items are $5,000 or more, and they last for 5 years or more. The majority of our expenses, and this is again sort of one of the goals that were mentioned at the beginning, was our pay as you go. We budget cash in the budget, and then we pay cash when we deal with those capital expenses. There are items, and we'll get into the debt picture very quickly and very briefly on the next few slides, but there are some items that we do go out for bond anticipation notes. The township does not have any long-term bonds and is not anticipated at this time to have any. Just real quick, some of the projects that are being considered or going into 2021, and we'll have a little bit more information on these later. But Short Hills Avenue being repaved. This is a grant through the DOT from Springfield border to Hobart Avenue. We're looking at starting to fund the replacement of the tower ladder truck and the fire department, and replacement of a 25-year-old mason dump. Those are just a few of the projects that are going to make up that $1.4 million. We currently have 2020 projects and 2019 projects that are ongoing. The Short Hills Garden, flume repair, Slayton Pump Station, and pedestrian improvements that will actually be starting, this is a quick plug, on April 12th over at the Millburn Middle School, doing that during spring break, as well as the Short Hills train station under the train trestle by Crescent Park. So those are in process now. So Jason's just going to get into a quick, we have 3 slides on our debt. We can go through that very quickly, and then the cap calculation, which I think is important to have some information on.
I'll try and make it quick. I tend to get caught up on some of the stuff. Go ahead, Jesse. So quick overview of our debt picture. Currently, we are at 0.12%, so less than 1/4% of our 3 years average equalized valuation. Under the law, you can actually go up to 3.5% of that 3 years average equalized valuations, which means if we really wanted to max it out, which we're not going to even go down that road, it would be about $280 million. So just kind of give you some context of what that means and what the state actually would allow you to do. Go ahead, Jesse. So that as a percentage of our budget, right now we're at, for 2021, our debt appropriation is just over 3% of the budget, which by the industry standards, the rating agencies, the Government Finance Officers Association, the number is usually anything under 10%. They look at very favorably. And this is just kind of a comparison to some of our neighbors, some of the towns that we generally look to compare to. So again, we're much lower than most of them. Okay, so the appropriations cap. So just to kind of try and give a general overview of what the two caps are. We actually have two caps that we deal with. We have the tax levy cap, which is an allowable 2%, and an appropriations cap. The ordinance that you just introduced is for the appropriations cap and the ability to exceed the cap. And that does not mean that we are exceeding it. It's more of a tool for future years if things go bad, is essentially what that is. It's an insurance policy. So the appropriations cap under the law is 2.5% maximum, or the COLA rate, which is set by the state, which this year is 1%. That sets your maximum appropriation. So our inside the cap appropriations could only grow by 1% this year. Okay, that's essentially what that says. You are allowed to, which is what the ordinance does, go up to 3.5%. And this also sets up what's called a cap bank. Okay, the purpose is it acts like an insurance policy. It's not real money unless we were to go ahead and actually appropriate that gap, which we don't do, and we haven't done it for a number of years. But you want to have the ability, because sometimes there's pressures outside of things that we can control, so that you have some discretion in how to work within your budget. It's trying to avoid arbitrary cuts instead of having us actually go in and really review what needs to be done. So you can go ahead to the next one. So under the appropriations cap for this year, if you went up to 3.5%, we could have moved our inside the cap appropriations to 47,934,000. At the 1%, which is the baseline for this year that the state set, the appropriations could have been 46,776,000. Our actual inside the cap appropriations, we came in at a 0%, 46,439,570. So what happens is that bank, or that difference of 1.4 million, is available for next year. That again doesn't mean we're going to use an additional 1.4 million, but it's there just in case there's budget pressures that we can't control. Okay. And then the tax levy cap. So it's kind of sometimes like a rubber band. The two caps don't do exactly the same thing, and they deal with sometimes the same issues, and they like pull at each other. It's interesting when you start to look at it, but it's an allowable 2%. Everybody talks about the 2% property tax cap. I'd like to be very clear. It's an allowable 2% because there are exceptions to it, and there are in some instances ways to go and exceed that cap when you go through all the calculations. But certain things such as increases in shared services, increases in debt service, increases. There's an addition for valuations on new construction that all allow you to go over that 2%. Again, we have not, and we don't necessarily look to go over the 2%. My personal has always been, you don't look to overtax just because you can, because that's essentially what you're doing. That's not what we should be doing. So our maximum allowable under the calculation would actually allow us to go to a 2.6% increase on our amount to be raised by taxes. We came in this year, as we talked about through the presentation, a 0% increase. So we're flat. There also is a tax levy cap that does not have to be approved by an ordinance. It's automatic. So essentially next year, if necessary, there's $1 million that would be there if we needed to increase over that. Again, that's something for next year. I don't think we've ever actually used a tax levy cap. I think maybe once in 2008. So that's the introduction presentation. I don't know if any of you have any questions for both or either one of us.
I have a comment first, Mayor. if you may. First of all, thank you so much, Mr. Jason Gabloff and Mr. Alex McDonald, for working and spending a lot of time into this. I want to acknowledge Mr. Gabloff also teaches budgeting for newly elected people or newly elected official or current elected official as well. I took that class as well where he taught all of us. And Mr. McDonald, he teaches the class for administration or getting introduced to the newly elected officials, how to work within the township. So we have excellent professionals that are working for our township. Both of the gentlemen has talked about allowable caps. Allowable caps doesn't mean we need to meet those. And I always consider with Mr. Wasserman, we actually work together with both the gentlemen here, allowable versus need. Do we need to? And the need wasn't there. And that's where we felt that we don't need to increase the tax. And they all agree and they figured out a way how to work through those. We have our goal, as they mentioned, we have to maintain or beat the current service level, and for which we have put in KPIs in place, which is the performance measurement for the township. And second one is we want to also continue to lower our debt, work efficiently and low tax rates. And that's why we have put in place where every department head goes through budget versus actual monthly. So they have their budget, which is brought down to monthly, and they go through it every month. And as I have presented in a couple of meetings ago, we talk about Millburn is #1 in Essex County or #2 in state of New Jersey as far as the taxes goes. But in Essex County, there are 22 towns, and we are the 22nd town as far as the municipal part of that budget goes. We are the lowest in the percentage. And out of 622 towns, we are, I think, about 534th ranked on something like that in 500. So it is not that we are the biggest taxpayers. As a percentage wise, we need to look at that as well. We are in a very, very good position. And what we have just done, or what team have just done, we are going to be in a very good position for 2021. And thank you so much for all the work you guys do.
Thank you.
I also want to commend you guys for working so hard on this. You know, it was really, in layman's terms, it was a tough COVID year. It was a tough year. And for us to maintain a flat, tax rate this year really says a lot to your good workmanship. So I just want to thank you also.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have 3 resolutions for the budget introduction. Resolution 21-107, Resolution 21-108, and Resolution 21-109. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-107, 21-108, and 21-109?
No,
Yes.
I would recommend that each of these resolutions.
Get separate? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Burnett. Okay, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-107?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Stahl Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
May I have a resolution, may I have a motion to approve resolution 21-108?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Paul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes. May I have a resolution, may I have a motion to approve resolution 21-109 and the public hearing and consideration of adoption of the 2021 budget is scheduled for May 4th at the committee meeting, which begins at 7 p.m.
I move that resolution 21-109 be approved and that the township clerk be authorized to have the budget notice published on April 15th, 2021 in accordance with the law in the item, and that the public hearing and final passage be scheduled for May 4th, 2021.
I second the motion on resolution 21-109.
Can I have a roll call vote?
Ms. Miggins,
Yes.
Ms. Paul Eglo,
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman,
Yes.
Mr. Vinayak,
Yes.
Mayor Prupus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to old business. Mr. McDonald, would you give us an update, please, on the removal of flex parking and the information session and all the work you've been doing on that?
Yes, Mayor. So we've been exploring the topic of the removal of flex parking on Thursday afternoon. I walked with Jesse down Millburn Avenue for those merchants and area and residents that would be impacted by this discussion, and handed out flyers for an information session that will take place on Friday morning at 8 a.m. in which the township's assistant engineer and myself will attend to present this topic and also be able to answer any questions, concerns, hear from the merchants, hear from everybody who may have want to have some input on this matter. In the meantime, we have, in the event that this project moves forward, we have bid specifications ready to go. We also have CAD drawings and we have an updated estimate on that project that we'll be sharing with the full committee so that they have all the information going forward.
Fabulous. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for Mr. McDonald on removal of flex parking? At
No,
this point?
sounds really promising and hope this is going to work out.
Is there a way that we could put it up on the website so that more citizens in town, can give some public input as well? Is there any way that we can?
Yeah, I think we can provide something that will or an avenue for everyone else to. We are also going to set up a second information session as well, because this one is sort of more focused and directed toward those merchants and residents that are actually on Millburn Avenue, and certainly any property owner or merchant that wants to weigh in, and then I think setting one up for the general public as well as again anyone who would like to attend, and then maybe we can come up with another avenue in which people can provide their comments or questions.
Thank you.
And we'll continue talking about this on the 20th. So, okay. Mr. McDonald, can you give us an update on the business advocacy zoning regulations and the information session concerning those, please?
Yes, Mayor. So we are continuing to work through specifically the 3 zoning changes that we've discussed previously at the township committee meetings, which is one is to eliminate the downtown parking requirement for businesses. The other is to make restaurants permitted use and maintain the 125-foot requirement for those that are within that distance to a residential property zone. And the third is to allow for additional uses in various in the various business districts. So we want to make sure that we're getting this out there and sort of having some information and giving the public an opportunity to comment As the committee may recall, we have gone down this road before, and we've heard from residents on Meadowbrook, Canterbury, Raleigh, and we want to make sure that we give them the opportunity to review sort of the compromise that we've come up with and what we think is a feasible approach to this. Very important ordinance in terms of allowing restaurants as a permitted use and still protecting the residents that live in close proximity to those areas. So we will be holding an information session on Thursday at 4 p.m. That information is advertised on the township's website. We encourage everyone, this will be set up as a webinar, similar to the township committee meeting, which we will present. We'll open it up so that people can ask their questions. We do have a bit of a tight time frame on it, but we'll make sure that we get everybody's questions in and then look to answer those as best as possible within that time frame.
Wait, Alex, this Thursday?
Yes, this Thursday. And again, I don't want this to be the end of the conversation in terms of this topic, but we do want to make sure that we're moving this forward and that there's some progress being made on these ordinances and these business advocacy efforts. So if we feel like there's a need to have another information or at least maybe even reach out to people more specifically, we'll certainly do that. But we do need to move these forward.
Mayor, Mr. McDonald, also, we were also looking at, also maintaining or raising some of our standards for restaurants in terms of, rodent. But we were also looking at making sure that we maintain, if not raise our standards in terms of noise control, rodent abatement. So while we are also inviting more businesses, into our business districts, we also want to make sure we're protecting, our residents in terms of, rodents and sound and pollution. And I believe our council was also looking at that. Is that still the case?
Yeah, we're continuing to look into that as well as an ordinance that addresses when you eliminate the parking requirement in downtown, you need to address the parking of those employees and business owners in the downtown. So we're looking at that ordinance as well. The difference is that so this is the zoning ordinance, which has a planning board component to it. Those are going to be general code ordinances that don't necessarily have that component to it. So we have a little bit more time on those, but yes, they're still being worked on.
Okay, so we will continue talking about that on April 20th as well. And then the downtown vision plan, the next steps. At the last meeting, we talked about 3 different subcommittees forming: two-way traffic, DPW site redevelopment, and the Taylor Park entrance revitalization. Just going to give a little updates on those. So on April 8th, we have an internal meeting with the two-way traffic investigation subcommittee. And on April 12th, we'll be meeting with the Essex County Engineering and traffic officials to continue the feasibility discussion. And that subcommittee presently consists of Dan Baer, David Hawes, Jennifer Duckworth, Gaston Haupert, Sanjeev Committeeman Vinyayak, myself, and Mr. McDonald. On April 9th, we have our first meeting of the DPW site redevelopment subcommittee with Mr. Marizidi. Mr. Marizidi will be on the township committee agenda on the April 20th to discuss the redevelopment path to the entire community. And this subcommittee consists of Beth Zoll, Alex Saltzman, Amy Lawrence, Craig Plotner, Committeewoman Miggins, myself, and Mr. McDonald. And then thirdly, we have the Taylor Park entrance revitalization subcommittee, and that's shaping up. Our first meeting will be on Friday, April 9th. And so far that subcommittee consists of Mark Robinson, Priya Patel, Committeewoman Eglo, and Mr. Molman. Do any of the committee members have any questions or want to speak to any of those 3 subcommittees of the downtown visioning exercise?
I have one more question on a new old business or old business.
I
but
can't
hear you either.
I said I have a question on another old business, but after you guys are done with the questions.
Okay. So we're moving on from downtown vision plan. All right. Does any committee members have any other items of old business they wish to address?
Is there any other updates on marijuana ordinance? What is the latest on that?
You've already introduced the ordinance, so it will be on for April 20th for final reading.
Next one. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mr. McDonald, can you just give us a parklet update?
Oh, sure.
I saw some of them around town.
So far we've given out 3 applications for parklets. We've had one returned to us, and the public may have seen this at Gianmarco, which I think it looks great, turning out well. And so it looks like the specifications and the way that it's built out all seems to be working out at this point. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, on to new business. Public comment.
Yes.
Yes. Committeewoman Miggins, would you like to?
Well, I just, we've talked back and forth. Mr. Carney, maybe you can enlighten us a little bit in terms of the public comment and what we were just discussing earlier.
Sure. Is this, yeah, the microphone's on, right?
You're on.
All right, excellent. So I think the issue is whether or not the township committee desires to remove public comment from the consent agenda and restore it back to the former practice that existed for quite a long time within the township of having one public comment period at the end of the meeting. And I just want to say that the Open Public Meetings Act, one of the goals of that act, which is in the legislative findings and declaration, is not only to permit the public to be present at all meetings of public bodies, but it's also to allow them, and the key word here is to witness in full detail all phases of deliberation, policy formulation, and decision-making of public bodies. And to that end, the statute, the Open Public Meetings Act, says that nothing in the act shall be construed to limit the discretion of a public body to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, except that a municipal governing body and also a board of education shall be required to set aside one portion of every meeting of the municipal governing body or board of education, the length or portion to be determined of the municipal governing body. And in this case, you're allowing 3 minutes. So the minimum requirement under the Open Public Meetings Act is at least one public comment period. Whether you want to have more is completely within the discretion of the township committee.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been times where we've had one comment. There have been times where we've allowed comments with consent agenda and public comment at the end. It's discretion of the township committee. Is that correct?
It's correct. You have to have at least one public comment period. So for a long time, I want to say almost maybe since the late 80s, the township had one public comment period at the end of the meeting. And I think it's only been recently, within the last couple of years, that the township decided to, in addition to that minimum requirement, to also have a public comment period for consent agenda items limited to the issues or the resolutions that are in consideration on the consent agenda.
Because at the end of the day, we're here to conduct the people's business in an orderly manner and in a civil way. And so we want to make sure that we continue to do that. So that was my concern, was that of late, the consent agenda items were turning into a free-for-all rather than just specifically what the consent agenda items.
So the statute says, this is the Open Public Meetings Act, that, and I'm talking now about the public comment,
Yes.
it's on any government issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern to the residents of the municipality. That is the purpose of the public comment period. It's for the business that is being conducted by the governing body.
Okay. So if we wish, we could always choose to take away the public comments for consent agenda items. We could leave it in. It's just a choice. As long as we have one, which is, and we have the choice of putting in either at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Again, the statute, it's the same section of the statute, says that nothing in the act shall be construed to limit the discretion of a public body to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of public at any meeting.
Okay.
and you have to have at least one public comment period.
I also would like to point out that's important to note when we have an ordinance or resolution up for second hearing, public can comment on those lines specifically as well.
So
Explain,
I
explain that.
just want to make
process.
sure I understand the question. If the question is there a public comment as you go through each of the resolutions?
For final reading.
Final read.
Second
For
and final
so
reading.
there, so for certain resolutions, for example,
Mhm.
the budget resolutions that were introduced this evening, the statute, there's specific statutes. There was one for the SID and there's also the local budget law. Each of those statutes require a public hearing be held before adoption of the budget. What happened tonight was approval of the resolution, to be distinguished from adoption. Approval is different from adoption of the budget, which comes only after a public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the statute. There's notice requirements and so on.
So there, when that happens, there would be another time for public to comment besides the end of the meeting, public comments.
Yeah, so, right. So for example, the budgets that were introduced this evening, while there is a 3-minute public comment period tonight, the intent is for the public to engage in the public hearing that is scheduled for May 4th on those budgets that have been introduced this evening.
Now, if May 4th is the TC meeting, is that time slot again towards the end for 3 minutes, or is that put as an extra on top of the 3 minutes at the end?
So for example, under the local budget law, so that hearing is governed by the local budget law. The 3 minutes and everything that I was talking about is the Open Public Meetings Act, that you still have to have that public comment period at the end of any, or at any, whatever time you decide to have it, at any meeting. Under the local budget law, the statute provides that no budget shall be adopted until a public hearing has been held thereon, and taxpayers and all persons having an interest therein shall have been given an opportunity to present objections.
Okay. Thank you for that information. And I think it's our intention to have an orderly meeting where we're discussing the business of the town. So we'll just keep that in the back of our minds for now, and we'll see how it continues to unfold. Okay.
Thank you.
Development Review Committee. Committeewoman Miggins, would you like to speak to this new business topic? The Development Review Committee.
Oh, yes, I am so sorry about that. It's been a long day. Well, what we're looking at is there are towns that are in surrounding communities that have a process whereby they have a review committee that before any development hits the planning board, it's already been looked at by whether it's the it could be the HPC, it could be the town forester. They have different setups so that we don't have issues that we've had with other development where things go to the planning board and things go awry. So there are different towns that will have a almost like a subcommittee, so that when you hand off the package to the planning board, it pretty much is complete. Montclair is one of them. In fact, for Montclair, for those who like native species, in Montclair, you're only allowed to use native species for any of your landscaping. So it would be a way to make sure, especially as we move forward and there's development that is happening or will have to happen. I think it would be good for us to be able to have a say in whether it's the architecture piece or the landscaping piece. So you form a committee that preps it all and helps the developers through this, so that there's just not things that are, this is, we're an older community. We were, started in the late 1800s. We want to try and maintain the integrity of that community. And also knowing that it is 2021 and things are changing. So it's a way to maintain the integrity of the community, especially where the development is concerned, the big development. So I think that it's an important thing to look at, and it's important to me. This is a wonderful community and I love living here. And I think it's something we have to be thinking about, not just about today, but what's it look like in 100 years when we're not here, but we've impacted it. So that's what that's about. And I can,
I think it's a great idea. Do you have any ideas of like how you would want to populate this, or just kind of what the next steps, if the committee there was consensus around creating such a development review committee?
sure, I think that you would want to absolutely include somebody from planning and somebody from zoning and somebody from HPC, Historic Preservation Committee. I think you'd want the forester there. I think you would want absolutely someone from Township Committee. I think you would want one, maybe even two architects. Be nice to also have a landscape architect as well. And, you know, collaborating together. I think that's probably how I envision it. And that's what I think they're doing in all these other communities. And it just, you know, of course, I'm recused from this Woodland Road project, but somebody had said they're like 7 times or 8 times that they're in front of the planning board, and that's just not necessary. If it all were planned beforehand, then it could go to the planning board, and then it wouldn't take, the process wouldn't take as long either. I think it's just taking so long for certain things.
I think this is a great idea, but isn't planning board also consist of different people from different boards?
Oh,
Yes, Sanjeev, talking.
Yeah. Doesn't planning board already, I agree with the concept that you're talking about, but I'm on the planning board as well. So there's somebody from environmental, somebody from zoning, not from historic, but you're right, probably when it comes to them, again, there's a lot of different people from different zoning boards or different boards that are already serving on planning board. How would that differentiate the
Well,
two?
what you're doing is you're giving them the product, as it were. It's already been approved. It's got this stamp of approval on it, so that when it does get to planning board, at least there's not, as we see that's happening, there's not all these questions.
So it's like one step more you have to cross.
Yeah, well, especially because as we continue to move forward and we have to, there are certain things we're going to have to do in terms of the development piece of this. I think what
I
it
agree
is
there,
about
I
having a
agree.
little bit more control over what the product is looking like at the end of the day, out in the town, rather than things just getting thrown up willy-nilly and you know, we're a special town and we want to have that look about ourselves as well. So
Makes sense. Thank you.
So I think also you're possibly looking to stop some of this confrontation that's happening when the product is coming before the planning board. If we could, like having a technical review committee for businesses, if we could maybe curtail some of this before,
correct.
and maybe, and just so you know, residents will still get to comment at the planning board. That's not
Yes.
going to take that away.
No.
But it has a little more information and control, as you say, listen, we can't tell the developer details, like they will have their own architects and engineers, but it's more of a guidance, and there'll be less frustration, and people will think the process was looked at more to what the overall arching goals of the town should be.
Correct.
So what would the turnaround be in terms of the process? You think it would tack on another couple weeks or up to like a month? Like, is there how do you see the
Well,
time?
as we see how long these projects can take,
Yeah,
I think it would probably tack on another month, maybe 2.
but in the end, it may speed it up because it may work
Correct.
out
Correct.
the kinks up front, you know, before it goes to planning.
Correct.
Good idea.
Mr. McDonald?
Yeah, just to add to that a bit in terms of the population of that group, I just would suggest working with township council or the land or the planning board attorney, just to make sure that, because there are certain rules that will
Mhm.
apply
Yeah.
in terms of whether a planning board member could be on that or not. So just to make sure we work with that.
Oh, no, you have to have your attorney there.
So Committeewoman Miggins, you'll pursue this, kind of work on it
I shall.
and come back to us on the 20th and let us know what you.
Yes, ma'am. I shall.
What you bring
Thank you.
together.
Yes.
Awesome, perfect. Right, the last item for new business is the proposed summer pilot regarding powered leaf blowers. Jesse, do you see Priya Patel on the call at all? Or, oh, great, let's bring Priya on.
At the panelist?
as a panelist.
As a panelist. Sorry.
All right, I just got promoted. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, wonderful, terrific. Good evening, everyone. So I will not be speaking to you today about this. Joe Barbanel, who is my fellow commissioner on the Millburn Environmental Commission, is on this call. And if you could promote him to a panelist, he will be presenting to all of you this evening about the proposed pilot on the gas-powered leaf blowers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the promotion.
Good evening.
A copy of the draft amendment has been presented to everyone previously by email. Is it necessary for me to read it, or is that something that people are familiar enough with that we can just discuss it?
No, hi, Joe, this is Diane Eglo. I'd like you to read it, please.
Sure. Okay. It goes as follows. Draft amendment to Millburn Municipal Regulation, Chapter 3, Police Regulations, Section 3-7.2, enumeration of prohibited noises, subsection B, blowers. Whereas currently in Millburn Township, under the above referenced regulation, loud noises are prohibited, including but not limited to any noise which, citing in part, quote, a noise disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, or safety of others within the township, close quote, and whereas the operation of gas-powered leaf blowers creates a health hazard to the operators of said equipment as well as to township residents by displacing significant amounts of particulate matter, pesticides, pollen, and mold into the air, and whereas the operation of gas-powered leaf blowers creates a nuisance by generating low frequency noise at higher decibels than deemed safe for human exposure, and by emitting carbon and non-carbon substances in a localized manner, and interfering with township residents' quiet enjoyment of the outdoors as well as indoor areas. And whereas municipalities across the country have recognized this health and well-being impact, and whereas municipalities across the country ranging from Sonoma, California to Princeton, New Jersey have enacted rules and regulations prohibiting or restricting such equipment, and whereas municipalities in New Jersey either have enacted or are developing regulations to preclude this impact to health and well-being, and whereas neighboring communities, including Maplewood, Millburn, and Summit, either have enacted or are developing regulations to preclude this impact to health and well-being, and whereas Millburn Township has demonstrated its understanding of the importance of noise control to the health, safety, and well-being of the township and its residents, now therefore be it resolved by the Township of Millburn, one, that Chapter 3 Police Regulations, Section 3-7.2, subsection B, be supplemented by the addition of subsections as follows. 1, the operation or use of any gasoline-powered leaf blowers by commercial or public personnel. 2, a proposed fine structure to be developed. 3, in the event of a hurricane, tropical storm, or similar extreme event or emergency, the mayor may, by sole discretion, temporarily suspend the application and enforcement of the provisions of this regulation for the purposes of debris removal and other related activities to optimize recovery from the event. The specifics that are pertinent to our community are, for the most part, number one, the low frequency noise generation. There is a substantial section of the population that either will get severe migraine headaches or ongoing damage to their hearing from the low frequency generated specifically by the motors in these leaf blowers. That's not the same as generated by a gas-powered lawnmower or by a gas-powered snow thrower. Another important aspect is that if we take a look tonight, actually, at their town council meeting, Summit is voting on their pilot program for the summer of 2021 to try this ban on commercial gas-powered leaf blowers. It's not being visited upon the residents. Maplewood already has an ordinance in place, and this is their first year with it, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Montclair has a dual phased program on trial this year. They're in the middle of the first phase, that's March to May, and the second phase will be October to December. So the intent here is to try to get to the point where we are protecting the health and hearing of the residents, and where we are really just taking an existing regulation on the books and expanding its implementation to have that health effect and impact. There's a lot of information going on in communities like Larchmont, New York, Sonoma, California. I don't know if you want to call it a community, but Harvard University, who already have these bans in place, and in some cases have had them in place for quite some time. And the results have been very, very good, both in terms of the acceptance on the part of commercial lawn and garden treatment, lawn and garden services, landscapers, etc., as well as on the residents of the communities.
Thank you, Mr. Barbanel. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Barbanel?
I actually have a question.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Barbanel, it's Richard Wasserman. So my question is, was there, and I may have missed, I had to step out for a glass of water, but was there any cost analysis over what this would cost one of, the landscapers? I'm totally for the environment. This is, something I think is very admirable to do for a lot of reasons. But, during COVID, I also have a soft spot, in terms of what this will cost, these companies. Do you have an idea? I mean, is it $500 per company? Is it $1,000? Like, what are we talking about in terms of the cost for these companies that are working?
Sure. The studies have been done and the information's in place that on a life cycle basis, they're actually much cheaper. That doesn't help in terms of what am I going to spend today. And the costs of these leaf blowers are really size dependent. They can range from like $69.95 per blower to a couple of $100s, which is very, very similar to the pricing for the gas-powered blowers. The difference crops up in that the operating cost for recharging the batteries versus the gasoline is much lower, and the need for personal protective equipment for the workers is cheaper equipment. So it's not a freebie in terms of what the landscapers would pay today. It is something that will be a money winner. There is a lot of documentation of that and experience from that from contractors nationwide. So again, it's going to depend on the number of blowers that have to be replaced. I don't know what from landscaper to landscaper, I don't know what their replacement cycle is going to be. Some people are going to be caught in the middle of a replacement event anyway, and others are going to just have bought new equipment, and it will be very frustrating for them. But on a life cycle basis, there's ample evidence that it's a money winner for the landscapers.
Can I jump in? This is Priya to answer Deputy Mayor Wasserman's question regarding the impact on landscapers. So we do have some information from our neighbors in Summit, and when they asked landscapers about the impact, they suggested that during the summer months, gas-powered blowers are mostly used to remove grass clippings from driveways and walkways. and that the proposed restrictions, i.e. the ban, should not severely impact their core summer business of cutting grass. So that's the information that we have from them regarding, how it would impact their businesses. Obviously in terms of work and therefore in terms of the, finances.
I just have one other question. So my last question on this is, the towns that are doing this now, that have eliminated, have switched over to electric, how much notice did they give these companies? Did they start this like a year ago? Was this done, at the same time? I mean, if we were gonna pass this or work on this, is this something that is done in a couple of months? I mean, we're already in April. Or did the other towns start this like a year ago and have given them notice?
Sure. Summit has made inquiries of some of the landscapers who work in their town, but they're voting tonight to implement a June 1st startup date. And Montclair did a January approval for their March startup.
Now, what do we as a township does? What are we using? Are we using gas powered, Mr. McDonald?
Yes, to my knowledge.
So how much will it cost us? Because I don't have that in my budget.
Yeah, it's
Or
hard to
something.
say.
I don't want to put you on spot.
Yeah, I would have to look into that.
So I think it's a great initiative. I would want to support it too, but with the right planning. I think environmental overall, the benefit that we are going to get out of this, even if there is a little bit cost higher than what we pay today, it's probably helpful. Not probably helpful. It is helpful, but we need to plan it and strategize correctly. We shouldn't be just going ahead and banning it. I think we cannot ban for landscaper if we cannot change our own equipment. We should be setting our example first and then going asking landscapers and also the not landlords, but the homeowners themselves. Not everybody is outsourcing this functionality. Some of them must be doing on their own. Are we asking them to change as well?
The regulations in Maplewood do not yet impact residents, and the same is true in Montclair. Maplewood is looking to extend the requirements to residents. Larchmont, New York, and Sonoma, California do extend to residents. Again, I think that the primary benefit, I'm very pro the environment, and I understand that the extra velocity from the gas-powered leaf blowers versus electric results in an awful lot of allergens being kicked up and made aerosol particles that end up enhancing a miserable experience for a lot of people who are allergic to things, and you're breathing pesticides and so forth, and it helps build the fungi and growth in the lakes and ponds. The big deal here is people's ears and the health aspect of it. And it's the noise pollution and its health aspect, not just the air pollution and the water pollution elements. So
believe me, I'm with you. I am totally with you on this, but I'm just trying to say, let's just think this through and do our homework, especially if we are asking the landscaper as a township, we should be setting the example first.
Sure.
Cost us to change those equipment. Is that viable for us? And is that a 1-year project or 5-year project or 3-year project? I would like to do that starting from our own township.
Right. I could agree with you that if it's something that we do decide to do, it should be phased in as we see our equipment is needing to be replaced, then we could replace it with electric. I do know that the batteries, you need heavy duty batteries, say for the commercial use, they only last a couple of hours. They're hundreds of dollars. And then you'd still have to go back and charge whatever equipment they're using. I think that it's also rather fast to do this for this summer, even if we all agree, and I don't think there's agreement, I can't speak for everybody. By the time the attorney draws this up and it comes back to the township committee and we have to wait 2 meetings to have a public hearing and a vote, you're already at the time that this should be taking effect. I think it just is too fast. As you say, we should do our homework. We should find out, do we want to do commercial first? Do we want to do our municipality first? Do we want to do both? And what is the cost benefit and how effective is this going to be? So I think it just needs a little breather to step back and a little more research. And we can see how Summit's pilot program goes.
No, I'm actually even pro this, even if it costs us a little bit more than the gas powered, but just strategically, we need to roll it out more strategically. That's what I feel. Again, you have all my support, Joe and Priya.
So I think I just want to jump in. I think that we are trying, part of the concerns around phasing in and going through, the appropriate process. We were hoping to address through the proposed pilot over the summer. We just learned of what Summit was doing a month ago, and it intrigued us because we thought that it was an interesting way to test this out, kind of dip our town's proverbial toe in the water and see how landscaping companies and residents and everybody fared. Joe had mentioned, I believe, that the proposed ban in Summit is from June 1st through August 31st. Obviously, we could shorten or lengthen or, amend that time frame however you see fit. But again, the purpose of the pilot of this ban with the sunset was to do exactly what I think all of you are suggesting, which is to take a very measured and phased approach to this, to not jump into anything, without, adequate process. And that's really what I think the proposal is to consider just a temporary ban for the summer to see how residents and businesses and how we all fare. And then again, what Summit is planning on doing is they will look at the data after August 31st. They will review feedback from residents and landscapers, and that will allow them to determine if and how their common council will vote at a future meeting to make the restrictions permanent.
And the same is true in Montclair with their spring and fall implementation.
Okay, can I ask a question? Yeah. No, this is Committeewoman Miggins. Good evening. Thank you for coming on. Besides Montclair and Maplewood, are there any other towns in the state of New Jersey that are doing this?
Summit again is voting tonight. Princeton, New Jersey. Summit is voting tonight on the passage of their summertime ban.
Sure.
The Princeton has implemented not a regulation, but an ordinance that has been dictated by the mayor and is being policed by volunteers within the community. And I haven't done an exhaustive search. I couldn't say who else is or is not active in New Jersey.
Right. I think I'm told 2 or 3, so that's why I'm asking out of 565 towns.
Sure.
Are they being sued? Is Montclair and Maplewood being sued at this time as well?
Montclair is not. Maplewood is anticipating that there will be some level of protest, whether it ends up being in the form of a suit.
Okay.
Hasn't yet been put forth.
Okay, that's what I'm hearing. Okay.
But Maplewood went a lot farther in their in what they were asking of their community than either Summit is asking or Montclair did ask.
I can appreciate that. And then sometimes I can appreciate the Larchmont town, but I think we can't compare our vegetation to California. I think it's 2 different vegetations in 2 different seasons. And so I think that's a little bit different. As far as Summit, just because you had set that over, so thank you very much. I sent a whole host of questions over to Summit to the clerk. So hopefully we can report at the next meeting on the what those answers were in terms of exactly what they are proposing, how long they've been phasing this in, what their current township, their current DPW is using. Because I think it's important we know, and I'm all for the environment, but I think it's important that we know, well, if you switch to a different, say the electric blowers, if you have landscapers that are using these electric blowers, how are they charging them if they're out for 10 hours a day? Are they gonna have to put a generator on the back of their trucks in order to charge an electric blower? I don't know. Has anyone spoken to any of the landscapers? Do we know, has anyone done that?
Committeewoman Megan, I do know that Summit Public Works has been using battery-powered leaf blowers for cleanup since early 2020.
Yeah, 2 years, she told me. The deputy clerk told me they've been phasing it in over 2 years. So
right.
What I'm trying to figure out is, in as much as landscapers, as well as our own township committee, what's the true cost? Is this, if we go to this type of a blower, does that mean that what would normally take somebody, half an hour is going to take them 3 hours? And so what does that do to the residents that live in town? Does their landscaping bill triple? Do our bills triple because we're, using these blowers? So it's taking our gentlemen longer to get rid of leaves or grass or whatever it is. I guess it's a timing factor too. And I guess the cost, overall, the cost, what is it going to cost? Because if you start talking about tripling fees or looking at they can't, mow the lawn and get it all cleaned up within the right time, that doesn't benefit us either, I think, as a town. So I'd like to, I myself personally would like to not do anything. I think it's too quick, too soon, too fast. And we haven't even spoken to any of the landscapers as well and how that's going to impact them. These are a lot of, people that aren't wealthy that, I know my landscapers that, they're poor people, and I just don't know how that's going to impact them and them having to purchase equipment and everything. So I don't know who's paying for all that. I guess I'm on the side of the little guy on this one, just thinking, well, who's paying for it?
So
Not only that, let me just piggyback on that. How can we ask landscapers to purchase equipment for a 3-month pilot program? So I don't even know if that's fair to buy something that might or might not become our ordinance in this town. I think they need a lot more notice, a lot more information. And I think in Maplewood, the fine is $100 the first offense and $500 the second offense. I don't know if they make $500 profit in a day. That would just be very unfair.
So I think it's a great initiative, and I would like to support it. And instead of just going out to landscaper and asking them to do it, I would rather start with the phase approach from township committee ourselves to use our own leaf blowers first, electric, and then go out to the private people or even residents and landscapers. It's a great initiative, but let's just do our due diligence on the cost of doing this. And I understand there will be a cost. How can we incorporate in our own actions here first and then roll it out?
Sure. And again, there is a body of cost information. There is actually information from the Landscapers National Trade Association showing that this is a favorable approach for them to do. I'm a small businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have a heck of a lot of extra money to spend on equipment and regulations either. And I'm not looking to have somebody do, as you say, a major capital program for a small trial, let alone for something that is not guaranteed to necessarily go anywhere. I do think that the overall short long and intermediate cases are going to really favor the lower carbon footprint for all of these folks. And I think that if there is an economic case for it, they'll jump on it. And there is an economic case for it. Like I said, that may not be a happy experience year one because of the initial capital outlay, but whatever the town decides and whatever approach we choose to take, that's what we should do. But there is information to show that this is both economically and ecologically favorable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barbanel. It seems like.
Thank you very much.
We're just gonna digest all this information and continue some more data fact finding, and we'll continue the conversation at a later time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
And I'm sure there'll be other public comments around this topic as well. Does any other committee member have any other new business they'd like to bring up at this point?
Yes, if I may. So I wasn't available last weekend. I think it was when there was a rally against Asian hate, which was, I heard, very successful and had a great turnout. I'm just wondering, and I don't know what it should be. I don't know what the answer is, because we definitely want to rally behind all of our residents and our business people. Should there be a policy on these kind of rallies? I know we all got an email that some people who live across from the high school, their street gets blocked. I know that the traffic gets blocked going up Essex Street, Essex. And should the rally maybe just be in Taylor Park, not affect traffic and not affect street closures? Or if you're going to have a march, should there be adequate time request in advance to understand like what the police resources would be, if it's a Saturday afternoon and there's shopping days. So I just don't know like what we should do. We want to encourage this, but what should the parameters be and some guidelines instead of someone just coming a week in advance and saying, please close the town, please close the streets because we're going to have a rally. So I don't know what a fair policy would be, but I think it's something that I think we need to have for the town. And the other thing, we also got an email about a resident who was upset about potholes. Is there somewhere on the website, Alex, for someone to report potholes that maybe DPW is not aware of? Like if someone knows that there's a really big pothole, like I know on my corner, there was like a little sinkhole happening, but I sort of work here, so I have access to you. How about other people in town? Like what would they do for a specific problem in their neighborhood?
They would go to the township's website and file concern. It's on the left-hand side. You just click on that and you can put it right in. It doesn't have to be a specific category. Generally, obviously that would be great if they find the right category, which is a part of that. But when those requests or those concerns come in, we're monitoring that and pushing it to the correct department. If it doesn't have a specific category, that automatically pushes it to the correct department.
So if someone notices something very specific on their street, it would go on that category on the website and it would get your attention to whoever is monitoring that.
Correct.
And get to DPW. Would they get an answer like, okay, we've acknowledged your issue?
They should be receiving an email that it's been addressed. One of the KPIs actually that we're following is the amount of requests that we receive on the SDL portal, and then how many are disposed of, or there's a disposition to them in that particular month. And generally right now we're about 90%. So
can you also, for my own notice, so we're having PSE&G in South Mountain right now, and they're really chopping up the streets. I know, but it's for a very good reason. We just have to live through this. What is the end goal? When do they come and pave after they've done what they've done?
Yeah, so we've actually already met with PSE&G to discuss their restoration plan a few times actually. And so for some of the streets, they'll be doing sort of center line to curb. Some streets where it's more, it depends where the pipe is located. And some streets they'll only do, part of a lane, right? And I know that this gets concerning when it comes to the residents that, well, they only paved half the street and however, what we're doing in conjunction with that is we're evaluating some of those streets that we feel either maybe need to be added to our plan, whether we can negotiate with PSE&G to do a full street where another street may not necessarily need, maybe there's only 3 or 4, cuts in that particular street. And it's not necessary to have them repave curb to center line. And we can use that square yardage to do more of another street. So I didn't answer your question yet.
Not yet.
However, generally what happens is now that the weather is turning, you'll start to see those places that they hit first start to get restoration. Thankfully, and I know this is a big sigh of relief to the community that they've paved, they're milling and paving White Oak Ridge and Hobart Gap, which was one of the first things that they did in that gas main replacement from Hartshorn School down to 124. So you'll start to see the restoration process start to happen, and in particular, probably the Wyoming section first, because that's where they were first.
Okay.
All right.
I think it's just frustrating for residents who ask me. I don't have the answer, and I don't
Yeah,
know
we
what
don't
the
have a
timeline
specific
is.
date,
It's
right? We don't have
really
a specific
difficult.
date, but you'll
Mhm.
start to see it in the Wyoming section first.
There are a lot of residents who write us emails and ask questions, and we forget the professionals are right here. And that website is actually a very good website. If I have any question and I don't have access to them, over the weekend, I put in questions or concern or suggestions from the website, and I get a response back. And sometimes I have asked even neighbors to use that website. Anybody who writes me an email, I actually guide them right with the link to that website. Mr. McDonald is absolutely correct. It goes to the right department and gets the right attention. And as far as the policy for March goes, the question that you asked, I think another thing should ask from our professionals, what are their thoughts on it? How should we be doing it? How are the other towns doing it? And bring us with some basic content on that. So then we can modify based on our thing, what we like to do in Melbourne. So I think professionals, these guys have the wealth of knowledge. We need to capitalize on that.
Right. I mean, like now, we know there'll be a Memorial Day parade starting at Wells Fargo, where it used to start up at the Short Hills train station. So that's a lot less closure of the road, but now there's a lot of notice out for that. So I think it's really important we give residents notice and people who want to have a rally or parade to really know what they're supposed to be doing, who they should contact. Is there a police? Do they pay for police? I don't know how any of that works.
Makes
And I don't know if
absolute
people know.
sense.
Yeah.
Valid question.
Okay, that's on you. Thank you.
Public comment period. Public comment period is a time for you to state your comments. It is not a dialogue between the public and the township committee. Our contact information is available on the township website, and we welcome your emails, or you can use the file a concern portal as well. When you're ready to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address. At 2.5 minutes, you will hear the buzzer and will have 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. When the second buzzer goes off at the full 3 minutes, your allotted time is over. It is with consensus from this township committee that we will strictly adhere to the 3-minute time limit for public comments. No person is permitted to yield his or her time to another speaker. Please remember that we are all neighbors and we are here because we love our town. Please do not disrupt the meeting by making disparaging remarks or by speaking beyond your 3-minute allotted time for public comment. Thank you. Yes, please.
My name is Ed Marks. I live at 18 Edgewood Terrace. And actually, first, I'd like to thank these gentlemen for the budget presentation. Just as a resident of the township, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work you obviously put into that and the results. So I'm someone, I've lived over half my life here. I first moved to Short Hills in 1957 with my family, and lived in many towns in New Jersey, including Maplewood, but I say it's been at least 35 in the township. And I would say without a doubt, the township is much, much better in 2021 than it was in 1957 subsequently. Without a doubt, the greatest diminishment in the quality of life and the most negative aspect of the township today, in my opinion, is the noise pollution and the other negative effects of the gas-powered leaf blowers. As you all know, we have a lot of very beautiful, quiet streets in this town. The noise of the gas blowers, the gas powered leaf blowers really destroys that environment. And, I've heard a lot of concern here about potential costs, which I can understand. I think we should also take a look at the current costs, which not only involve the severe negative pollution, but in terms of concern for the little guy I'm concerned about is the guy who's holding that gas-powered leaf blower, which have been demonstrated across the country to have a negative effect on the workers, on the health of the workers. And of course, all that dust that's blown up does not disappear, whether it's insecticide, other particulate matter created by the power of the blowers. It can end up in our children's lungs, our grandparents' lungs, anyone's lungs. So I would just say that, again, I think it's an important issue. I know there's different views on it. I hope we can come to a solution that satisfies everybody. And one thing in terms of the environment, to me, it's more about the humans that are being hurt by the noise and so on, and inhaling terrible things, and the workers who have to use these things. But in the presentation about JCP&L that mentioned the hurricane season, we can't overlook the effect of gasoline powered engines, because all the time I was growing up in Short Hills, no one ever talked about the hurricane season. Thanks very much for giving me the time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld. I just like to go back to basic civics. This country is based on we the people. We heard a discussion about public comments. At no time was there any discussion of our state constitution and Article 1 and the right to petition government. In addition, there was no discussion of a local finance notice that was issued in September 24th, 2000 regarding virtual civic participation. There was no discussion on public notices that are published every day in the Star Ledger from state agencies and other municipalities talking about civic participation and the right to meet. About 5 minutes ago, we had a council member discussing, why don't we survey what other municipalities or other communities do about public comments? I welcome that. There might be an easier solution. Why don't we ask the Attorney General for an advisory opinion on this issue? Because I know they have to brief the issue, because they have to submit a brief to me by the end of the month as to my right to contest, to be heard prior to an agency taking action to issue a bond. Because what we heard today, and this is going to be an issue now in the political campaign, we have one party saying that citizens, we the people, have no right to be heard prior to official action being taken. That's not an ordinance. You will take official action, you'll consider it without our comments. And that ties into tonight's agenda. There was a settlement. For the second meeting in a row, there was a major document that was not attached to the agenda packet. I still do not know what the terms of the settlement is. I do not know what we are paying, if anything, to affect the settlement. What is outrageous, at 6:55 tonight, while I was sitting here, I received the Main Street application. This needs to be posted on the public website as immediately. The public needs to hear and read what this community is representing to the state as to the buy-in to the city. There's representations made in here about what happened. In this document, there's no reference to litigation. There's no reference to a lack of feasibility study. These are the problems that we're having. The public, we want to have trust. It goes back to civics, public communications. The planning board meeting last week, people are going up because the problem was when the original settlement was approved, people felt like they had no buy-in. It is now appearing. And the planning board now has to make a determination of what it will be customary. When you use the word redevelopment, a lot of times that means there's a redevelopment plan. That usually sets the standards. Right now, we have those standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Good evening, Mayor Purpose. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Purpose and Township Committee members. I hope first off that everyone and their families are doing as well as possible during this pandemic. My name is Matt Greller, and I'm an attorney who works on environmental and public health policy, and I also live in the Wyoming section of Millburn. I'm fortunate enough during this time to be able to work from home during the pandemic, and my kids are at home in remote schooling, but I cannot listen to others on a phone call or a Zoom call with earphones directly in my ear, and my kids cannot concentrate in class with the loud sound of leaf blowers. But this issue is more than about just noise. It's an important quality of life, environmental, and public health issue for Millburn residents. I strongly support banning landscaping companies from using loud and polluting gas-powered leaf blowers during the summer. I would respectfully request that the committee also consider adopting a year-round restriction in the future. There are widely available and affordable electric leaf blowers for landscaping companies to adopt to cleaner and quieter technology. I should know, I own a Ryobi electric lawnmower, an electric edge trimmer, and a Toro electric leaf blower. They're great. They're very powerful. They're extremely effective. And most importantly, they're very affordable. Plus, electric lawn equipment doesn't require the added cost of gas, so they're much less expensive to operate and maintain. Most importantly, they do not directly pollute Millburn's air quality because they do not contribute fine particulate emissions. The two-stroke engines on a gas-powered leaf blower is an environmental and a public health disaster. Edmunds, the car reviewer, compared the two-stroke engine on a backpack gasoline leaf blower to a Ford F-150 Raptor pickup truck. Their findings show that just a half hour of yard work produces the same level of emissions as driving the truck 3,887 miles. Think about that. That's like driving from Millburn to Juneau, Alaska. The two-stroke leaf blower generated double the NOx, that's oxides of nitrogen, 23 times the carbon monoxide, and nearly 300 times more non-methane hydrocarbons than the F-150 pickup. Put it another way, the air would be much cleaner just blowing the leaves using the rush of a passing truck instead of using a gas-powered leaf blower. Why is this information critically important? Because this air pollution can be considered a potential key contributor to increased asthma rates, cardiovascular disease, and even COVID-19. Several peer-reviewed studies show that link NOx exposure to such health damage. Research from the journal Science of the Total Environment, as well as the Journal of Environmental Pollution, show that long-term exposure to NOx may be one of the most important contributors to death caused by COVID across the globe. Simply put, gas-powered leaf blowers poison our environment and they poison our bodies, which in turn weakens our ability to fight infections. Why would we want this in Millburn? Especially when environmentally friendly, effective, quiet, and affordable alternatives are just one click away. I strongly support a year-round ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, but short of that, a summer pilot is a great start to protect the health of Millburn residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Greller.
Can you talk, Monisha?
Hi, this is Manisha Amaral from 124 Short Hills Avenue. I must admit I haven't actually attended a lot of these meetings, but I've started to in the last couple of weeks, and thank you for giving me the time to speak. I had some concerns around the SID. I know I've been hearing a lot of comments from like a lot of neighbors and business owners around the SID, which has now been rebranded as the Explore Millburn Short Hills Business Organization. I don't know if this was covered in past meetings, but I wanted to understand, was the SID ordinance was passed with a feasibility study? And I had questions around the budget of $220,000, given that we had a huge reduction in revenue this year for a $511,000 reduced. Why would we be spending $220,000 on this organization? I work for a bank, I work for UBS myself. And, when things are not balancing, I question why aren't we reducing costs versus increasing expenses? Another question I wanted to ask you is, can we have maybe board members or volunteers appointed? I see half of the budget is going towards salaried employees for this organization, 80,000, 36,000. These are Wall Street salaries, for an executive director or consultants and marketing. Traditionally, a lot of marketing costs were picked up by businesses on that in the area, because it solely benefits them with the added revenue that they get with all the marketing. Why would the business owner offload this onto the township? Given that we're in a pandemic with reduced incomes and job losses, I would think that's the last thing the township should be signing up for, is picking up the marketing and advertising costs from the business owners. I also question a lot about the cap rate being increased for the taxes and the appropriation. It's a slippery slope. We increase that and we don't need it. And given that we have a surplus of 18,000, we leave it open to other township members, increasing our taxes or raising debt. I wanted to remind you, the BOE did something similar a couple of years ago, and we landed up getting a tax reassessment, which resulted in an increase in taxes and 40 million raised in public debt. We've seen this with the BOE. We probably don't want to do it with the township council.
Thank you so much for your comment. We're just keeping everyone to the 3-minute allotted time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nancy Stone, 266 Essex Street, Millburn, New Jersey. 209 days, Tara, till you're out. Congratulations to Oyen for stepping up to fight against the suppression of this TC freedom of speech. I'm against the SID. Gemstone boxes spread around the town. Funny how no jeweler participated. 27 merchants did. I don't know, not the way to market our precious Millburn. Thank you, Monisha. Wow, I wasn't expecting her to be so eloquent. She's such a smart woman, and her input was greatly appreciated because there need to be more voices other than the few that have been appearing on the weekly or bi-monthly basis. I'm not there for a few reasons. I recently had my vaccine and I had a terrible reaction. Perhaps somebody put extra poison in mine so they can get rid of me, but I'm not going away. I will be here, and I'm so pissed that I'm not there in person, because you can cut somebody off of Monisha's caliber for what, a few minutes, a few seconds that she was going to take making such valid points to the community. I just got to say that it is absolutely appalling what Maggie did to Jean earlier about this nonsense of what was your question. The question is, we have questions that are never answered. And unfortunately, the only way to get them answered in these a few measly minutes that you give us, it's like you're doing us a favor. And then you give so much time to this lawyer that you're paying top dollar with our money to explain that you don't have to give us the time to speak up. So would you rather us be protesting in front of town hall and get big rats in front of town hall? Because that's what the next step is with the outrage in this community is going. Because it's outrageous that you would take 220,000 and Michael Parlavecchio, who I think is a stand-up guy, why he would put his name behind it is a loss to me. Why he would do that, because he seems to be a pretty credible guy. 220, when you just raised the potential tax base of this town for $1.1 million. I can't see the clock, so I don't know how much time left, but I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of cutting me off, because we're going to cut you off. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ms. Stone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Vinita Gangwal. I'm a resident in the Deerfield section of Short Hills. And I am not speaking here today as a subject matter expert on the leaf blower pilot project. I'm simply speaking as a resident, as a mom um, of this township, and really echoing the sentiment before in support of this pilot program, which I do hope goes through and then becomes a permanent fixture in our township. And the reason for that is very simply all the things that people have said about the noise pollution, air pollution, which impacts not us, the residents, but obviously the little guy whom a lot of us seem to be very concerned about. Those are the people holding those gas blowers and inhaling that polluted air. Every single minute they're blowing those leaves away for us. So please, I really do think that in our hearts, we all know that that's not the real reason. The cost itself, if you're talking about that, there are pretty good electric leaf blowers available in the market, anywhere from $200 down to $40, $50. In terms of battery life, people who own it, they do know that you can buy it in a spare battery and recharge it. And that gives you a much longer life to get a leaf blowing session done for your yard. So there are arguments, made against anytime there's a proposal made for any change, especially in the environmental context, we hear these usual arguments against it, that it is against business, it is against free speech, it is against people's rights to do what they want to do. But we do forget that our rights end where other people's rights begin. And nobody has this right to keep spreading pollution when it is impacting other people around them. So the township has got to do something about it. The other thing about, we got to take things slow and think about it and perhaps, roll things out over 2 years or 3 years. The world can handle a pandemic like COVID and completely change the way it operates in less than 2 months. You really think we need to argue and reinvent the wheel here when over 100 townships in America have already banned this leaf blower, including Washington, DC. So there's tons of data and evidence available. We just need to be open to it. And we just need to stop pretending that we're not in support of it for the small business guy, because that is definitely not true here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Perry Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue in Short Hills. I just would like to say I've noticed that Mr. Falcone has not been present in the past few weeks. I truly hope that he is well. I have to tell you, in 28 years, really my intentions with this committee, what I've learned over the past 10 months, I really truly want to become allies and not stay as enemies. I understand and I can appreciate Mayor Prupus's intentions with your making your policies and procedures. However, they shouldn't be put into policy to be able to shield people who are in opposition, and that's how you're making us feel. And I think that it would tone down the animosity because you're giving everybody that limitation. I would ask if you would take into consideration, people have taken a lot of time and put a lot of effort in some research and made statements that if you would waiver and take into consideration, at least let these people finish out their thoughts, that would be greatly appreciated. I'd also like to thank Committeewoman Miggins. I do appreciate your efforts in the 9/11 Memorial Day Parade. But as a property owner that's trapped in this SID ordinance, I hope you understand why there is opposition when the township continually favors the downtown area. The chairman, Mr. Michael Palavecchio, mentioned that we had 2 great SID events. One, the Halloween held downtown, and the opening of the season of the music, of the opening the dining this year downtown. So you could understand that our frustration is that the focus is constantly downtown, and that's why there's a strong opposition. I'd like to ask when we could receive, out of the 165 property owners and the 263 business owners, when we could receive the buy-in and a feasibility study. Who conducted those studies? How could you possibly pass and vote on an ordinance without that type of information to support? I'd also like to ask, you have till May 4th. We're going to be voting on the budget for the SID. Please, Committeewoman Mayor, Madam Eglo, please stay true to yourself and your commitment of why you voted against the SID. And I would hope that Committeeman Vignac and Committeewoman Miggins, please stay to what you ran on, saying that you would not use the monies of the funds from stakeholders. So I hope you seriously consider before you vote on this SID budget. I would like to, if you could consider the executive director. I mean, he's here for 30, not even 30 days. And you're going to approve a budget of with his salary of $79,000.
Thank
you. Potential.
Hi guys, am I on? Hello, hi. This is Regina Truitt. I live on Hartshorn Drive. Good evening, Mayor Prupus and members of the Township Committee. First off, thank you for your service. Not easy. Just a quick question. Thank you so much for re-examining the issue of the flex parking again. As one famous American said, it takes a village to park a car on Millburn Avenue. So I'm really happy you're looking at that again. My brief question is the flex parking survey closed now, or can we comment on that in an official manner in any other way?
Can you repeat the information?
Yeah. So there's no survey that is open. There is a public information session that will take place on Friday at 8 a.m. But also we will be setting up another one for the week of April the 12th. And I do realize that is spring break, but we will make it available via Zoom as well for the public.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Prupus and the Township Committee. This is Jennifer Duckworth, 82 Linden Street. I'm asking about the parking that was proposed at the previous Township Committee meeting that Alex had spoken about. And I'm just wondering when is that public hearing, and are we allowed to make comments about that, or can you explain the process for that, Alex?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are we discussing the potential for reverse angle parking?
Yes, yes, that's it. Sorry, thank you. When is the discussion for that is the question.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to finish, Ms. Duckworth, and then I can answer your questions?
So we're allowed to ask questions now. I guess my question is, will that reverse angle parking, will that preclude the sidewalk from being able to accommodate more pedestrians?
So I'll answer this. That if reverse angle parking was used, it would not impact the pedestrians. However, we are looking to pivot a bit on this project and this potential solution, in that the issue that arises there is that there are two lanes. One is a parking lane, a parallel parking lane, and the second is a dead lane that is not utilized by through traffic. And that increases the desire or the ability to double park in that area. So an additional solution has come to mind to place if anybody saw the parklet at GM Marco, there's a block, cement block, it looks like brick, at the end caps of that parklet. The idea was to place those blocks within the parking spaces and provide a parallel parking lane on in the current dead lane that is utilized to be public to do double parking. This would eliminate the need for painting, a different movement, and also it is something that can easily be taken in and taken out. We can easily put down these blocks in the parking spaces and then remove them if for whatever reason it's not working or we get complaints. I think it's just a far better solution to do temporarily, and that's where we're looking to go.
Okay, so it's not gonna, so the first reading is now moot, and we're just gonna move on with other other options.
Ms. Duckworth, there was never a first reading or.
Oh, I thought Alex had mentioned. Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dominique Urso, 514 Millburn Avenue. I have a few comments and questions. First, I'd like to quickly open up and say, I really love and appreciate how you just gave Miss Duckworth the opportunity to ask her question. Then you paused her time so she doesn't lose her time to answer it right then and there so she could hear you and maybe have a clarity or have another comment based off of your answer. So I hope you give me that same courtesy to let me ask my questions, stop my time, answer it while I'm here to talk to you, not answer it after you mute me off the Zoom. That's how you do it. How you did to her was excellent, and I hope you give us all that same courtesy. So my first question is, who is responsible for promoting the entertainment held Saturday, April 3rd, this past 2021, located on the corner of Main Street and Millburn Avenue? As the mayor stated in her message on April 2nd, 2021, and who is responsible for paying the vendors' bills for that event? And what plans does the mayor and TC members have to promote the rest of the town in that same manner and/or type of event?
The entertainment was commissioned by the Millburn Short Hills Business Association organization. It was paid for by that same organization. And I think Deputy Mayor Wasserman had actually presented tonight on some efforts to promote and beautify and provide aesthetics to the Upper Millburn Avenue area with the tree planters.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. But I just want to make it clear, is Upper Millburn Avenue and other parts paying for something for downtown that doesn't benefit our business? And I would love to see, instead of more beautification, which is great, but what specifically, what event do you want to hold for places like Upper Millburn Avenue? The same thing with the great live music. I love all that. I would love that for Upper Millburn Avenue too. If you do it for one place, you got to do it for all. You know, I only think that's right, to promote all business. You can't forget about other places where business is struggling. So please keep that in mind. I want to hear back from you if you got an event for us up here. Second question is, American Relief Act. The town received some money. I want to know where that money is going to be allocated to. If you could pause my time and answer that question, please, be much appreciated.
Yes, the $1.9 million that's looking to that is allocated potentially to the township, we have not yet received, and so therefore we are not going to comment on where that money is going to necessarily go at this time. But we will certainly make the public aware of that once we have a sense of how that money is going to be allocated, what restrictions are going to be placed on that money, and how we can allocate that.
Amazing, thank you. I will wait to, I guess, hear next about that, so I'll keep my ear open for that. And lastly, someone like myself that participates via Zoom, being busy with work or etc. is my case, why virtual is easier for me. So being that I'm a virtual commentator, resident of Millburn Short Hills, I know that the host of Zoom has an option to make split screen. So I would love to make a suggestion that for me on the Zoom, I only see my face or my name. I can't see any of you. Like right now, I can't see any of you while I'm speaking, and I can't see the clock. If you would be so kind for the next meeting and so on to do a split screen where I could see the time clock for myself, that way I could wrap up my thoughts and all that. It would be easier than getting cut off or not knowing, because honestly, and I would speak for everyone, we don't know how much time we have left. So again, if you could do that split screen, that would be awesome. And my other last thing would be, you took away the messaging. So I can't.
So I'll just elaborate on that. One is that is correct. We do not have a Q&A. It is untenable in a public meeting setting to have Q&A on our Zoom sessions. That's been gone for quite some time. Two, for those individuals that are on Zoom and that wish to have the view that Ms. Urso just described, I believe it is Alt F2 so that you can change to a gallery view as opposed to the speaker view. This is a part of the settings that the individuals outside of our settings need to adjust. So if you're familiar with Zoom, as you've heard, some individuals have the ability to see the timer, some do not. It comes down to settings on your own personal computer.
Great.
Hello?
Good evening. Hi, good evening, Mr. Wexelman.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, yes.
All right, great. So this is Mr. Wexelman of 10 East Beechcroft Road in Short Hills. And I'm commenting on the gas leaf blower situation. And I just wanted to let the township know that if the issue is ultimately a cost issue to the township for this battery situation, I am willing to donate the batteries to the township as long as they pilot program an electric leaf blowing pilot system effective 6/1. I will donate the cost of all of the batteries to the township for their own municipality use. Hello?
Oh, we hear you. Thank you, Mr. Wexelman.
But that's only if the township initiates.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have anything else that you'd like to comment on or elaborate on?
I think you're disconnected.
Okay. Mr. Moman, let's take people, only people who haven't commented before. Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Cross.
Hi, thank you for taking my, I guess my comments. I've been very involved in the town in the last year, starting flag and getting money to the community. I would hope that the town takes a second to listen to some of the business owners, because they are very frustrated. And, I think they come from a place of, they come from a very good place, but they're frustrated with what the CID's doing and what they don't control. And I'm kind of a voice for them at this point, because I hear and I talk to them constantly. Our town is struggling, the restaurants are struggling, the stores are struggling, and they feel like nobody is listening to them. So I would very much hope that the town council will not take what they say and feel aggrieved and be angry and ignore it, because again, these are people who've put their life, their entire income, everything they do into the businesses and into our town, frankly. And I work in town, and we walked to Millburn Deli today for lunch, and it's shocking how many of the storefronts are vacant. So I really, really hope that, you look at what you're doing and how you're approaching the SID. I tried to work with the SID. I've worked with the volunteers of the SID who've been great, but Ryan was there and gone, and really have gotten very little help, frankly, out of it from a flag perspective. And again, we're going to get $200,000 into downtown, and we're going to get it into the restaurants. But, you really, really need to think about what you guys are doing and how you're approaching things. And then I would just say, because as somebody who runs a small business, I appreciate all the concerns about the leaf blowers, but I'm guessing most of the people who've come forward to talk about it have never run a small business, have no idea what it's like to make payroll, have no idea what it's like to put in, capital investment, and frankly, probably don't understand everything that's included and in required for running a commercial grade leaf blower. So I 100% think that if we're going to do something like this, it needs to be phased in. People need to think about it. And we really honestly cannot do some sort of a trial, because that's just frankly ridiculous, because you're going to require people who don't have a lot of money to go out and make capital investments to try to do something where you might say, oh, oops, we disagree. So, that's on the leaf blower. And then again, on the cap side of things, it's been COVID. People are really struggling. Maybe not everyone in our town, but a lot of them. And let's just really think about how much we want to go out and make people spend more of their hard-earned tax dollars on increasing budgets. Frankly, we should all just try to live within our means. I mean that for people in town, and I mean that for the council as well. So again, I appreciate everything you do, but please just listen with an open mind and an open heart to what the community is saying. Certainly the downtown community is saying, because they are struggling. They want to succeed, and they want nothing more than to have a really, really, really successful Millburn. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can. Good evening.
Hi, hey, so Jennifer Bathena, 64 Great Hills Road. Thank you guys for letting us speak today, and thank you for your time and service. I'm just a resident, a tax-paying resident, not a business owner. But for almost a year, I've been hearing, our neighbors, decent friends, neighbors, business owners of this town who have, given so much, voiced their concerns over and over again about the legitimacy of the SID, or whatever it's being called now, Explore Millburn Short Hills. From my understanding of it, the SID ordinance was not passed legitimately. There was no feasibility study done. And now we're spending money on this organization without proper approval. The paid members on the SID were appointed instead of being elected. And they should have been elected by the people who would be most impacted by it, the business owners, but they were not. And reading today's budget packet, it seems like this organization is to be funded with our tax dollars, $250,000. And half of it goes towards salaried employees. So, and then the executive director of the SID was given the goal to set up the SID as a Main Street, New Jersey designation, which has, added implications of being beholden to the state of New Jersey. So with all this, issues, my question to the current TC is, why are we dismissing, for the past year, why are we dismissing good, honest business owners' concerns? It's the SID is riddled with issues due to improper planning. So why not just start over, do it correctly, do it legally? If there is a need for this organization, which probably is, why not do it with the proper input of the businesses in our town? Why dismiss their concerns? Why not do a proper feasibility study? Involve all the business owners and their concerns. Why not nominate folks for the board, but then allow the business owners to elect the board members to run it? why not do it carefully, and why not do it with full transparency? And finally, why use a quarter of our $1 million, quarter of $1 million of our taxpayer money to fund this thing, instead of letting it be funded through the Chamber of Commerce or whatever the business owners themselves? Because why is it being done this way? And I really would love for the town committee to answer some of these questions in the form of a document or email, or however is easy. I don't want to put you on a spot right now, but please answer our questions. This is being recorded. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Tonight.
Thanks. Bye.
I'm just gonna remember everybody that public comments is limited to 3 minutes. So please change the setting on your Zoom so you can see the timer as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hi again. I'm speaking on behalf of my father, Dominique Urso. Don't cut me off. I know what you're going to do. You took the YouTube off tonight. And what?
Thank you. So I think that we don't let people yield time. So thank you so much for adhering to our orderly, the process of our meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
We can please state your name and address.
Excellent. Nicholas Volpicelli, 18 Overlook Terrace. Good evening, all. Appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you. Picking up on the questions regarding the SID, I do believe a lot of the angst we hear is because of the way it was born without having the feasibility study first. If there had been a feasibility study, we'd gotten the build-in, the buy-in at the front end, I think we would have a lot fewer issues, and be easier maybe to attract and retain top talent if we were going to go that direction and get people to serve on the volunteer basis. And I just wonder if we've been fully creative in looking at how other towns do programming. I believe you've said that Chatham is one of the surrounding towns that does not have a special improvement district, yet they have a fantastic 4th of July parade, have since I was a young kid there, as well as have a whole day festival called the Fishwack Festival that they've put on for years, again, without a SID. So there's ways to have creative programming without a SID. And I think if we had had the feasibility study, we might have much more support for that SID. And picking up on Chatham again, as I mentioned last year, they do a tremendous job with transparency by publishing an annual report or biannual report on their school capacity and expected population growth. The township committee partners with the Board of Ed on doing those. That's real transparency where the residents get to see where the plans are. I think that would go a long way towards building trust in the town to see where we're going. I see a lot of potential buildings in some of these designs, and there's a lot of nice things with the downtown visioning exercise, some really neat things. And I love the trees for Upper Millburn Avenue and around town. That's a really nice beautification, but I do get worried about the amount of construction we're planning, the stress that'll put on our schools. And I do, again, in the spirit of transparency, put in comments earlier so that the public can have a chance to steer. We had 3 issues last year. Or spot rezoning to try and let somebody split their lot. The 125-foot setback where the residents weighed in, the township committee listened. And I think it's great when the township committee listens to the residents. We're here, we should be trying to partner. And we appreciate when we get heard because there are concerns about, our different restaurants operating under different rules with or without permissions. Why do some get parklets and some didn't? Anyway, that's my comments for the evening. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr.
I had my timer on. I tried to, did I hit 3 minutes?
Yes, you did. You got your full 3 minutes.
Bam.
Mr. Moment, let's go to Ms. Pasternak and then Ms. Mervs, and then if there's anyone else in the room that would like to comment.
Yes, hi, Jean Pasternak, 342 Hobart Avenue. I want to first say that I believe there is being an attempt to obstruct our right to free speech and robust civic engagement. In the discussion that I heard earlier with the, whoever that is, substitute township attorney and the township committee. I'm very disturbed by it, and I think it's extremely concerning to all of us in the public. I'd like to talk about conflicts, first of all. I'd like to ask, why did Mayor Prupus, you've been emphatic about public addressing you with our questions, but then earlier you had Ms. Miggins, come back at me. I didn't understand why you did that. Second, did the Township Committee receive a written legal opinion regarding a law firm simultaneously representing the local planning board and representing the municipality in our fair share housing litigation? Third question, did Ms. Miggins and Mr. Vignac pledge during their campaigns not to use taxpayer monies to fund the SID? It seems that you voted in favor of that this evening, and it's contradictory to what you said during your campaign. When did the Township Committee receive a written legal opinion, whether Councilperson Miggins, a local real estate broker, could sit on the local municipal land use boards in either a voting or ex officio capacity and run a subcommittee on what to do and repurpose the dump? I'm going to move to transparency. We have no idea what you're doing with the affordable housing negotiations, something that will permanently change this town. Yet there was a ton of focus on gas leaf blowers, sewers, and dog excrement at this meeting. It seems very disproportionate to what the real issues are in this town, and I'd like to understand why you chose not to discuss it this evening. I'd like to understand, following on from Nick, capacity of the schools to absorb all the new apartments coming on stream is being examined and analyzed, yes or no? Who is doing that? Why is there spot zoning for favored projects and residents? There's no overall zoning in place, and it's unfair to both the community and taxpayers, but yet favors the developers. Why? Was Perkins Eastman granted the opportunity to modify and amend its downtown vision plan proposal, and who recommended that? The January 5th meeting minutes. Why did you totally omit the mayor's removal of a citizen from the meeting by the police? Not mentioned one bit in the minutes. How did one restaurant operate without the township committee required legal approvals and was supported and publicly approved by the BA and the former mayor? That's really crossing the line, and I'd like to understand how that happened and why that happened. And I'd like to end with the quote from Ms. Miggins. She talked about, you break the law, you pay. How about you lie, you break the law and you pay?
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, does anyone in the room want to make a comment?
I think there's one more.
Okay.
Young lady.
Ms. Owabi, would you like to make a comment?
Good evening, everyone. 46 Maple Street, Walabi. I would like to bring to the attention of the Millburn residents that I will be running for a sit on the Millburn Township Committee. Thank you. And I would also like to let them know that help is on the way. Thank you.
Okay, can we take Ms. Mervis, please? Okay. Okay, and then Sydney, Ms. Mervis, and then Subhadra. Yes,
Hi, can you hear me?
we can hear you. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Sydney Mervis and I live on 23 West Beechcroft Road in Short Hills. I'm also a student at Millburn High School. I would like to speak on behalf of the electric blowers, trimmers, and chainsaws. So 2 things have pushed me to be here today. First, over the last several years, I've watched people and governments push to substitute industrial combustion engines with electric-powered cars, trucks, and buses. Second, COVID has enlightened not only me, but also many others about how much air and noise pollution landscapers create with their dirty 2-stroke engine machinery. My proposal is to use electric-powered blowers, trimmers, and chainsaws instead of gasoline-powered ones. Based on the number of households in Millburn Township, this would reduce carbon dioxide equivalents by 283 metric tons per year and substantially reduce noise pollution. This is equivalent to 703,403 miles driven per year. Some might argue that electric substitutes are much more expensive than gasoline. Extensive research shows that these products are affordable and comparable in price. In addition, over time, companies that replace the gas machinery with electric will actually save money, as electric motors do not require gasoline, oil, and substantial maintenance costs. Most gas blowers have a 3-year life, so if a landscaper purchases electric-powered equipment and uses its gasoline-powered equipment in other towns, then there will be very little burden. I've done research and learned that nearby towns such as Maplewood, Montclair, Westfield, and West Orange have taken initiatives to ban this equipment. Why hasn't Millburn? Why aren't we? Also, as a high school student working from home, all this lawn equipment has become a big distraction. I appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to my proposal, and I hope that we as a Millburn Township can move forward to help our environment and community in the same way as so many other towns. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take one last comment and then we're going to close public comment for the evening.
Hi, my name is Subhadra. Can you hear me?
We can. Good evening, Subhadra.
Okay, so Subhadra Sridharan, 16 Hamilton Road. I'm here to speak up on behalf of electric landscaping equipment. As a resident, and my husband's been working from home, my kids are home as well. Yes, the noise levels are really getting to us and affects quality of life. When we walk outside, and now that spring and summer is here, when we spend time outside, all these pollutants that these gas-powered equipment generates is pretty harmful to all of us, including the person who is using it. It's probably more harmful to those people than people who are walking by the streets, but generally a quality of life issue for everybody. So even if I, as a resident, were to switch, and I have switched to all electric for my yard, gas-powered equipment is being used right, all around us, and we are unable to, even inside the house, we are unable to not hear, it's too much, not hear our phone calls or not be able to focus on lessons. So this two-stroke engine, that's the cause of all this pollution and the noise levels, right? And I heard this argument that we can't enforce this burden on small business owners because it's a huge capital investment on their part. But when we think about it, we are in the age of electric cars, and we have these two-stroke engines are a product of really like the 1970s and the 80s. That's the kind of machinery we are using. So 40 years later, there has been no investment from the industry because the initial capital cost is so low for that. But then the maintenance cost is very high. So people get into it and like there's no investment from the industry side. So how long can we wait? How long are we? So why can't we as towns say, this is it, and then that will hopefully trigger the industry to catch up with technology. And right now, I think the electric blowers are pretty good. I use two myself. I always charge them. And it's lightweight when compared to the gas power. So I'm like a 5-foot woman, as some of you would have seen me. And I can use this myself. My children have used this, and we rake the yard. So I think there are feasible solutions to this, which are not out there. As I heard somebody say these things like it's too much, or it's like, it's a few years away. I don't think it's a few years away. And I think we should be the driving force in adaptation for this, for more environmentally friendly and a quality of life friendly for the residents and the landscapers in this issue.
Thank you, Subhadra.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, public comment is now closed. Does any of the committee members have any responses that they would like to give to any of the questions or comments made by the public this evening?
Mayor. So again, there was some allegation made again on me while in the campaign season that I was against it. I want to again set the record straight, and I set it up a few meetings ago as well. I was always pro SID, for SID, and I'm still for SID. And I'm a human being. I can actually be flexible if I think I'm making a mistake on some of the judgment call that I made in the past. But this one, not changing it. I'm for Sid. Again, I was for Sid. I am still for Sid. Great work, Committeeman Wasserman, and whoever is working for it. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, I just want to respond to some of the comments that were made. And I want to take the township back a little bit in terms of timing. One of the main reasons that we created a SID was to address the rising vacancy rate. In the town right now, the vacancy rate is double digit. I don't know if anybody's seen the news, but our YB gym that was here for years and years and years just went out of business. I mean, you can argue, COVID or whatever, but that's a huge space. There's many people lost their jobs, and on the other hand, we were lucky enough to get a bagel store on Millburn Avenue. But one of the main focuses of the SID of business improvement districts is to address and attack vacancy rates and to keep it down. We have many neighbors in adjoining towns that have very successful SIDs where their vacancy rates are 4% or 5%. And I also want to address, the SID. Also, we filed our Main Street application. Mr. Feld, as you know, the application was due at the end of March. It was just finished. And I know that you received it, and that you received it in a timely manner. You received it in a timely manner. I will also say, because it was only submitted a week ago, it was only completed a week ago. The other thing I will tell you, one of the reasons that we're looking at applying for Main Street status is that there's a lot of grants that are available for Main Street communities. Last year, 11 Main Street communities received $3 million from the state of New Jersey. And you could say what you want. It doesn't cost us any more to get this status. It opens us up for grants. It opens up us up for more green grants, green opportunities, green space. So it's a really positive thing if we can get that status. And also, Mr. Feld, you mentioned that we didn't disclose lawsuit. Every question on the questionnaire was answered honestly and appropriately. And I'll also mention that all my colleagues on this committee voted at the last meeting for a resolution supporting the SID. We were unanimous and supporting the Main Street application. That's ultimately going to help this town. And the other thing I'll mention is that if we continue to have rising vacancy rates among our commercial storefronts, it's going to be on the residents to pick up the tab. It's on the residents. So you're going to have more tax appeals. You're going to have commercial property owners, appealing their taxes. This is going to be continuing. Right now, it's double digit. And one of the main purposes of the SID is to address the vacancy rate. And other towns that have SIDs do this very effectively. And I just want to restate this for the record. I want to invite, people out there that don't think that we're doing a great job. I'd invite them to our meetings, to our programming subcommittees. Come and help us. Come and help this town. You're unhappy about something, come to the meeting and help us. That's really what I want to say. Thank you.
Township has responsibility for the township residents. Some people will like it, some people will not like it. We spend millions of dollars in Complete Street, which we thought was right for the township. This is $200,000. And we keep talking about this. Yes, it is some money by each person. But come on, guys, $200,000. This is what Millburn Township is. We have $59 million budget. And there is no raise in taxes. We are doing every possible thing, including the professionals here are helping us out. So come on, be genuine. We keep talking about township is not being transparent. Everything is right in front. Whatever you're asking question, if I know the answer, it's right there. If I don't know the answer, somebody in the professional people here, they do answer. You can now again keep complaining, but on the right thing is right thing. Just don't we value your opinion. So please bring up the things that we can work on to help you out. If you keep talking about on the right things as well, then come on, we need to value each other's time too.
I just want to appreciate what, say, I appreciate what you both said. We're not going to always agree. We all have the best interest in mind. When President Biden or Malinowski or Murphy or McKean and Mila J.C. are elected, you don't get to talk to them every time they have to vote in Congress, in Senate, at the New Jersey state level. They're elected, they have to make decisions. We're elected, we have to make decisions. And this attacking really has to stop. I'm going to share something. I'm having surgery next week. I've never missed a township committee meeting. Maybe I'll Zoom in the week after. But our health is really important, our personal health, our mental health, and we have to stop this attacking. It's so unhealthy for everybody. And I've made mistakes. I've changed my mind on things. We will continue to change our mind. We grow, we mature, but we're entitled to change our mind, and we're entitled to look at things from a different side. And this picayune, and I don't know if that's even a good word anymore, but it has to really stop. You have to trust us. You have to know that we have what we want, what we feel is right for the town. And at the end of the day, we're elected to do the right thing, and you can research all the bills, you can research what the joint meeting is, you can research what the joint 911 is. And as Ms. Miggins said, when she was new, there's a lot of things people don't know. So ask the questions, we can answer what's appropriate, but please stop this attacking and trust us that we have everyone's best interest, because we all live here, we're all residents here. And I'm not going to answer you, and I'm going to say thank you and good night.
Thank you. And please, this isn't a back and forth, so please let's finish out. This is just time for the committee members, or do you have anything?
Just one thing,
Committee Member Miggins?
which it's a very good point. With the mediation and the fair share housing, we're not allowed to talk about it. We're under judge's order not to be able to talk about it. Is that correct, Mr. Carney?
Yes, right. A mediation or a settlement is confidential until it's approved.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And we're working very diligently. The mediation committee is working very diligently to try and get that settled. As we know, the previous administration kicked the can down the road, and it's now fallen on all of our laps. And we understand what we have to do by law, what legally we have to do by law. And that's what I think it has to do with as well. So I think that's important, that when we can talk about it, we will talk about it.
Mr. McDonald, do you have anything that you would like? Mr. Carney, do you have anything you would like to say?
Just,
Mr.
sorry, Mayor, just one brief comment. I encourage the residents to go on to the website tomorrow and view the budget material. I want to clarify that the township is not increasing taxes. Understand the caps. We tried to explain that. It is a little bit of a confusing process, but please take a look, and if there's anything we can help with, we're happy to.
And did you not say, Mr. Gabloff, that we've never used those caps? Over
Yeah.
20 years, maybe?
2008 during the financial
Crisis
crisis. Yeah, we did use the appropriations cap. So just keep in mind there are when the state says there's zero increase and you still have an increase that you need to, that's when you do. But at this point in time, they have not been used in recent memory.
The amount,
Thank you.
the amount of.
Excuse me, we're not, okay. Mr. Vignaya? Committeeman Vignaya?
The amount of transparency that we get from the professionals when we are in a finance committee, it's $1 even spend more if we question that. There's a reason given for every dime and every dollar to spend. I am so appreciative of what you guys do. Thank you so much. Don't get discouraged by negative remarks. There are so many compliments that you get on daily basis that I want to extend that to you as well. Thank you again.
Mr. Molman, do you have anything that you'd like to say? Not tonight. I just want to say that it is a privilege and honor to serve Millburn Township as your mayor, and to our professionals and to my fellow committee members. It is a privilege and an honor to work with all of you.
You as well.
So thank you. Good night, Millburn Township.
Thank you.
Good night.
Wait, motion to close.
Motion.
Can I get a motion
Motion
to
to
adjourn the
close.
meeting?
I second
May I
it.
get a second?
Second.
Okay, good night,
Good night.
Millburn Township.